Hello and welcome to the Tech Talks of the AEC Hackathon. Welcome everybody who's sitting in the audience, and welcome online, wherever you are sitting in the world. We have a fantastic session for you this afternoon over the next 3 hours. We have 8 speakers who are going to come and talk about technology and construction and talk about sustainability moving forward in the industry as well. So over the next... Wait, gone too far already. So here's the program for the next 3 hours of talks. All of this is live streamed, so if you miss anything, you can come back and have a look later. And this will be up live on BLOXHUB YouTube forever and ever and ever. So you can always come and have a look at the mistakes we make, or come and have a look at the great work that we do. My name is Matthew. I'm here to talk about Zero today. I'm also the project manager for the hackathon this year. So those of you who are in the audience, you've already come to speak to me, but you can contact me online as well. So I really hope you enjoy the next 3 hours, and let's kick it off. So I'm here to talk about something called Zero, which is a not-for-profit startup education network around sustainability, specifically embodied carbon in construction. So I'm one of those co-founders in the group. Right now we are over 1,000 members working across 32 countries, across 28 professions. And really, this is just a pitch because I want more people involved. It's that simple, what I'm discussing today. This is the current core team, spread across 3-4 major continents. And you can see some of my members have little pink badges. We also have a youth movement as well called Zero Next, where anybody under the age of 30 or anybody that is new to construction has their own group, writing their own manifestos. We're sticking these people in front of CEOs of construction companies, and they're basically sitting there going, why aren't you acting? Why aren't you not making a bigger impact on the construction industry for sustainability? And we are looking for new members to join this group as well. This is the group that is kind of building education, doing talks, driving education, and a whole load of other activities that we're trying to do. The reason that Zero exists is really, really simple. We created Zero out of our own frustration that the industry is not doing enough to empower people to ask the right questions for the businesses that we work in. We believe that everybody has a responsibility to ask the right questions to the right people in your organization. This is not about us working with leaders and decision makers. This is about us working with everybody because collectively we have a big problem to solve. And that big problem is construction right now is responsible for 12% of all emissions on an annual basis. That is more than fashion. And that is approximately 5 billion tons of CO2. For us, we want that to be 0 billion tons. We know it could be impossible to do, but we are going to do everything we possibly can as a community, as a bunch of activists, to get it to 0 billion tons. And we need people. We need people power to achieve this. This is about getting everybody out there talking about the right things. And what we've done and what we're launching, we've already launched this internally for members only right now. Last year, we collected hundreds of people, and we authored 60 chapters on where you can start in this journey. And we've published this, and we've just launched, as of this week, 4 more pillars. So we are right now asking for experts and authors to come and help us with circularity, digital, finance, and materials in construction. And anybody in this room and anybody online can come and help us author stuff, writing, diagrams, videos, podcasts, whatever you want to do to get it out into the world. Like, we need help. Because I'm not a carbon expert, I'm just really good at getting people together in a room to do some work. That's my skill. I have no carbon education at all, but I care about it, and I'm trying to get people to care about it with me. So if you're a member, and I'm going to put a QR code at the end for you to become a member. You will get access to this within a week, and you can come and having a look. I've authored 3 of these modules, so do not judge me. But I've written about, like, in leadership, writing about how do you reward people for good work, and how do we learn from mistakes in construction. We're not very good at that. I've also written about lean, so how do you take manufacturing lean processes and applying that to a construction process. We have such interesting and smart people involved, so come and have a look at this. We've got the existing ones: leadership, design, measurement, people, construction, and innovation. And this is a playbook. The reason we call it a playbook and not a white paper is white papers are what we call shelfware. This industry is really good at creating documentation. You download it, you have a read it, put it on your shelf. You do nothing with it. I can say a lot about that for the standards that we write, and I may be criticizing the industry a little bit right now, but this is a playbook. This is like Wikipedia. You can go in and suggest edits for any of this. This is not static. You can expand on this. You can add case studies to this. You can add videos to this. You can come and say, hey, I don't agree with this. Should we rewrite this entire section? Yeah, sure. Here's a bunch of people to go and rewrite it with. When you log in as well, you get a profile. You will get badges for more activity you do. It is fully interactive, and this is what we're building. We need people to help us with building that as well, because we're kind of short of coders, and we're doing this all for free in our spare time. No one is being paid for this at all whatsoever, and no one will. This is community-driven information which is available. So come and dive in. It's absolutely great fun. We've been using Miro boards. We've got a guy, Stephen Berkshire, who's a Canadian architect who's great at drawing us concepts. This is like the crazy Miro board that we nearly broke Miro with, and then it all kind of ended up here. We've been using ChatGPT to help us actually write some of this stuff as well. So we're using basically every tool that we have available to us to do this as quick as possible. And then we're going to make games. So we're going to make like a top trumps kind of card game, because we're working with schools. We're working with 12 to 16-year-olds who don't really understand any of this. So we're going to make games. And right now, we're actually asking for our membership to help us work out the scoring on different modules that we've written. So right now, this second, if you're a member, you can go in and vote and help us work out the scoring, like what's easy to do, what's hard to do, how effective is it. And we're going to approach this a bit like the plan is a bit like Cards Against Humanity approach. You can download it for free, use it in your place of work. But we're also going to print this so the organization can reap back a little bit of money, and we can like do some more stuff. So you can come and get involved with all this imagery we're using AI for. So we haven't drawn this ourselves. We're using Midjourney and Stable Diffusion to create some artwork for this as well. We're just trying to make it as fun as possible. And this is what it means to be part of our membership. Right now, being a global organization, most of our work is online. I've met a fraction in person of our current membership. But we are going to drive to do more in-person events. We're being invited to run sustainability stages at construction fairs. We're looking for speakers all the time to fill these slots. And the point of me talking today is that myself, a gentleman from BLOXHUB, Skanska, and 2 people from Sweco, we are launching unofficially today the Scandinavian Nordic Baltic chapter today. So this is, we have hardly anybody in this region part of it. We want to build it up. We will first start meeting online, and then we're going to start running events, running afterworks, running collectives, running problem solving across the Nordic Baltic region over the next how many ever long years this takes to fix. Hopefully not too many, but we have like a timeline to kind of fix to. And this is what we're trying to work out as well. Like, it's just carbon literacy. Like, this is so little talked about. We just want to teach people and help people understand the basics so they can go and understand. We have some really smart people who know so much about LCA, embodied carbon calculations. We've got IoT people. It's getting people in big businesses to understand this stuff. It's how do you start working out how harmful your building is. We have a concrete company involved, one of the biggest concrete companies in London, who are like, oh yeah, we need to reduce the carbon in our concrete. Can you help us? Sure we can. Absolutely we can. Go and speak to these people, these people, these people. So we are connecting people. So it's about that empowerment. If you want to join, this is the QR code. This will take you to our membership page. There's a new website going up on Monday, Tuesday, so if there's a blackout for 24 hours, that's why. And we have a new membership experience, or as you're all here, or online, just come and speak to me. It's free to join. I get paid nothing for this. We're just trying to solve a massive problem. So please come and join us in Zero and help us solve this 5 billion tons of carbon issue. Thank you very much. So that was me. And next we have on Ole from Molio, who hopefully is here. Here he is. Sir, the stage is yours.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Yeah, my name is Ole from Molio. Let's see. Do I need to do something for my slides? Ah, there it is. Yes. So my talk today is about construction technology ConTech for a more sustainable building industry, and it's a little bit an overview of what we have been seeing, what we are seeing here in Denmark, but also what we have been seeing in the US and in Israel. So try to collect some companies I thought were inspiring and just show them to you and see what you think. So I come from a place called ConTech Lab, and we are the common platform for the Danish construction industry to have a shared place to develop, to experiment, to work with data and technology. So what we are mostly doing is we're doing small pioneering projects, we call it, where we do 5, 6, 7 each year, where we look together with companies and together with universities and tech companies. We are looking into technology and what it means for processes and the way people are working. And we are doing all different kinds of stuff, from drone pictures for maintenance of buildings to using sensors to measure research consumption on construction sites. What we're also spending a lot of time on is disseminating the knowledge that we have been creating, and looking a little bit into things. And yeah, just quickly to say what is this ConTech work? What is construction technology? To us, it's basically several types of technology digitalization that support the construction process somehow in either design, engineering, or execution and operation. And basically, I mean, you all know that basically what we all are seeing currently is technology becomes much more collaborative. It's not so much me technology. It's not so much one company implementing one kind of technology for themselves, but it is more we need to collaborate to use technology in order to become all benefits out of it, in order to become all the productivity benefits or all the sustainability benefits out of that. And basically that leads to the two big challenges, and don't want to spend so much time on that one here because everybody knows this and has seen this a lot of times. But basically the two big challenges of our industry are the climate crisis, or also the biodiversity crisis, so the sustainability side of that. And on the other hand, I mean, we have not been talking about it that much, but we still have a productivity challenge in the industry. You also need to do something about. And and as I say, both things are interesting to the industry, are important to the industry, but basically also technology digitalization is what helps us solve both challenges, are the basis for both challenges. And we have been saying that to each other for a long time now, and how does technology actually make us more sustainable, and that is what we want to look into. And one thing we did recently, we tried to look into how many digital tools to enhance sustainability in Denmark are there actually, and when were they created. So we did a little bit of research, and as you can see, right now it looks like an exponential curve. I don't think it will continue that way, but we actually have a lot of different tools just showing up over the last over the last year actually, and I guess the reason for that is also clear. It's regulation also drives development, but there's a lot of stuff happening in that space, not only in Denmark but especially in Denmark, and that is related to that we got these in Denmark for the non-Danes here. We got these very ambitious what's it called, carbon requirements for new housing projects that came into effect on January 1st. Yeah. So what are we doing about it? So how do we use technology to become more sustainable? How to become more effective? To make what's it called? To make a little bit of advertisement for myself. Just show some of the stuff that we are working on. So one of the big projects that we are currently working on with a lot of industry players down here is this resource consumption on construction site, and basically A4 and A5 in the LCA process, which has been a little bit under prioritized, not only in Denmark. I mean, we spent a lot of time optimizing the operations phase, and we got quite good at it. Currently, we are looking very much into materials, and if making the the design more effective and the structure more effective. And the next thing is basically we need to fix the construction process, because there is a 10, 12, 13, maybe even 18% of the LCA over over a building's lifetime is that process. So there's a lot you can do. So what we are doing here is we're going out on 10 projects and trying to measure resource consumption with digital tools. So instead of what contractors would do usually is go out and read a meter. We'll go out and get setting systems up to get real-time data in order to improve. Because you can only improve what you can measure. Talking a little bit quick because we have so much I want to show you, but feel free to ask some questions. The other thing, and that is also part of one of the challenges we posted here, is our offices and our office environment. We have a lot of space in a place like this. There's a lot of space. There's not 160 what's it called hackers here. There's a lot of space everywhere, especially post-corona. Offices are not that filled anymore. I just learned on average in the US it's 60% usage of the of the office and of the offices. And my guess is, even though more people are back at work in Denmark, it's probably similar. And we have a lot of space here, and we also want to have space where we can collaborate. But what we basically want to do in that project is collecting data. How is office space actually used in order to optimize it? Because currently we are looking onto carbon footprint per square meter, but soon and hopefully we'll look at carbon footprint per person, and then we also have an incentive to reduce the square meters used, which would be the actual effective side. So we are talking a lot about climate. We're talking a lot about what's it called, CO2 currently. The next thing we need to talk about, we already are slowly talking about, is the biodiversity crisis. And we have been starting to look into biodiversity and looking into how can tech actually help with it, because it is, it's actually a very under prioritized area. It's a what's it called? What's the English word? Biologists, maybe, going out in the field and counting how many bumblebees and how many butterflies there are and how many flowers there are. The other challenge is we don't really have one model currently in Denmark. I think we have 3 people are using. So and these models differ on is it butterflies you're counting, or is it bumblebees you're counting? I mean, a bit over exaggerating here, but But basically what we are looking into here is we want to have one method, we want to have one model in Denmark, and we're working together with some of the big players. And then we want to look into how can technology help us. I mean, AI is good at counting things. So our approach to this is at least IA can also count flowers, bumblebees, butterflies, and other kinds of animals. So we're just starting this project. Enough about what we are doing in ConTech Lab. Just give you a little overview. I think this company is quite cool. Moxion Power. Little San Francisco, no, not San Francisco, but in Richmond, other side of the bay, so little Bay Area startup. And basically what they are doing, they are building these huge batteries, which basically is a generator as a battery, an electrical generator. So instead of having a diesel-driven generator on site, you can put these batteries on site, and you can even operate a tower crane with it. I think that's very interesting because we are looking more and more into electrical equipment. And in Denmark, until 1 or 2 years ago, was kind of easy. If you wanted to use electrical equipment, there was enough free room in the grid that you just could basically ask somebody to plug it in, and you can't do that anymore. So if you come in the municipality, want to use electrical equipment, it's difficult because you can't get chargers set up anymore. So we need to bring electricity to our construction sites if we want to build that way. I just visited these guys, Factory OS. It's a modular building. It's a modular builder. If you look into their construction production process, they might seem on the what's it called a bit on the manual side. So it's craft people producing the stuff. I think the interesting thing about Factory OS is that Autodesk invested in them, and the take that they are having on construction right now is we need to fix the design process first. So they are looking a lot into automation. They're looking a lot into computational BIM, a lot into scripts, in order to make it easier to adjust their design to the building, to the architect's design, which is one of the challenges in modular construction. So I think that definitely was fun visiting them. A lot of smart people in computational BIM in that team. Also think Greenvibe, Israeli company, is an interesting place. So they are doing sensors, and they are doing concrete sensors. And basically what they want to achieve is they want to have more exact, what's it called, maturity, and they want to know the load, the possible load on concrete structures at an earlier stage. So they are putting in sensors that both measure maturity, temperature, strain, and also they also look into how evenly the rocks are distributed in concrete, in order to get to know when is it mature enough that we can build on that. So it can be both used, especially for high rises, to build quicker, to know, okay, 36 hours we can start building the next floor. But it can also be used to optimize your concrete, because you know your strength much more precisely, so you can start using less concrete. And one of the challenges in concrete is because cement is so cheap, at least cheap in money, not in CO2. Concrete is over-dimensioned a lot. So basically, the engineer over-dimension is a little bit. The guy at the construction company ordering over-dimension is a little bit. The person taking the order is over-dimensioning a little bit, and then they put a little more into it just to make sure, and just because it economically doesn't mean that much, but CO2 means a lot. So this is also a way to reduce your CO2 footprint. Let's get back to Denmark. I think what's interesting in Denmark are all the sensor companies coming up, looking into how can we use sensors to build more sustainably. WoodSense is interesting, looking into sensors for wood construction. Also, they're looking into flat roofs, and Fugt is moisture. And what's it called? And maturates, definitely measuring also maturity of concrete in a much easier way, and looking into how can we turn out our heating. How can we turn out our heating depending on electrical prices and concrete maturity. Our own little project, I won't say as much because I just noticed that Christian and Nikolai are coming a little bit later and telling about LCA Collect. Basically, this tool for shared tool for LCA documentation. I think it's an interesting approach. I think I'm rather excited about that we tried to build a tool together in open source for the industry. But stay for Christian and Nikolai's talk a little later. And then finally there's circular construction. So reusing the stuff that we already have. We have Circle Bank, we have Miller, we have also a couple of other companies looking into how can we use technology, how can we use technology to figure out what is in our buildings, and how can we get somebody else to use it. And I think James, who's here in the room, made an interesting case. That was last year's hackathon winner, wasn't it? Where they used a script to take stuff out of one building and use it in another building. Yes. Sorry. So lot of information, very quick, lot of exciting stuff happening around.
Any questions from the floor? I have a couple for you.
Oh, hard questions?
Super hard. But any questions from the audience at all? I thought it was interesting that you brought up biodiversity. It's something I've been reading about. And if people don't know about biodiversity, go and follow UN's biodiversity organization on LinkedIn. It's a well underloved channel. They produce some really interesting things about biodiversity, such as the fact that 100 years ago, we used to grow and farm 500 different types of tomato. Nowadays, supermarkets, we only produce about 15. There's a huge biodiversity loss in that. For apples, it's pretty similar. For cucumbers, it's pretty similar. But for you, Ole, you do some really interesting work in the ConTech Lab. What's your biggest barriers to getting this out into the mainstream? Is it education, people not knowing? Is it insurance? Is it risk? Where are you really hitting the wall?
I mean, I think where we mostly hit. We work quite well with a lot of big companies, and with the companies, many of the people representing here, we are working quite well. But I mean, that is 10-15% of the construction market, what they are representing. So there's all the other 80%, which are small and medium companies, who are who live a little bit on a different planet as the other 10 and 15%. So what we really need to focus on in ConTech Lab, in Molio and BLOXHUB, and also as the industry together, is the other 80%, is all the small and medium-sized companies, and make them aware of it, but also provide easy-to-use tools so that it becomes naturally. I mean, that they don't really have a chance then acting right.
So keeping it simple, getting the message out. We're all responsible for that.
And building the good process into tools, I think, so that you basically are nudged or forced to make the right decision if you use the right tool.
Or just building a process. It's amazing how many processes just don't exist for this stuff. So it's really good. How do people get in touch with you to get involved in your work? How's the best way to get in touch with you?
Reach out, follow us on LinkedIn, or write me an email, or reach out during today or whenever you meet me or some of my colleagues.
Great. Any questions? No? Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ole, from the ConTech Lab. So next on we have Henning, Larsen Architects, being presented by David Fink, I think, and another colleague? Ashkan, talking about one of their projects that they're going to present about. So please welcome to the stage, David and Ashkan. It's all yours, sir. No, just keep going.
Okay.
say.
So just like to say thanks to Matthew for letting us present our project today. And thanks to everybody who puts on the hackathon every year. This is really a fantastic event. We're really stoked to be here again. And today we're going to talk about a project that seems to relate to many of the projects that are being executed this weekend. Last night, the lightning round, there was a lot of LCA projects that were being pitched. And I think that this is kind of along the same lines. So this urban decarb project is a joint project between Henning, Larsen, and Ramble. And the idea is to pioneer new approaches to working with urban design and taking carbon into consideration and kind of taking on this battle for the green transition. And we kind of feel that this green transition starts in the cities. And this project really emphasizes how we can work in the urban environment with carbon. And it takes into account a lot of factors that involve carbon. So it's not just the buildings we're looking at. We're looking at the entire urban environment when we're looking at carbon. And I think this is a different approach because we're not looking at buildings in isolation, but we're looking at a more contextual approach to carbon. And this app that we've developed, it leverages several different technologies to combine data from several sources to pinpoint ways to improve the design to minimize the carbon footprints. And the idea of this app is it helps us create, helps us make informed decisions in our design proposals. So it's not just a side project, but it's something we use as we're designing an urban environment. And when we talk about integrating this in the early stages, this is where the biggest impact can be made with the least amount of energy. Because here we can begin to develop multiple proposals, check their carbon impacts, and move on to the next proposals. And it has the benefit of both educating our clients of what carbon impact is, and it also involves teaching our designers about the decisions that they're making throughout the design process. So we start by looking at some of the questions, like what are the most carbon intensive parts of the urban environment? And typically we can see that the urban environment is primarily very intensively heavy carbon elements. There's always asphalt, concrete, and all of the buildings that make up the environment. And then we also can see how can we design the most sustainable cities using carbon impact data, and how do we use this information to make the right decisions? And how can we impact through our designs a better city and minimize the carbon impact over the life cycle of a project? And last of all, it's like, where can we find carbon impact data for urban typologies? And the idea is that we're taking all of these different sources of data and combining them into a single tool to do this. And we've seen this food pyramid in the past of the healthiest choices are at the bottom, and kind of as you move up through the pyramid, the choices get less and less healthy. And this has also been developed for materials as well. We can see at the bottom of the pyramid that the lowest carbon impact materials are at the bottom, and as you work your way up, the materials get more and more of a carbon impact. So now we've decided to take this one step further and say, okay, what is the urban environment look like in this pyramid? So we can see at the bottom that we have these parks and biogenic buildings and transformations. Those are the least carbon intensive. And as we move up through this, we can see that the buildings and the initiatives become more and more carbon intensive. That we can see that, yes, a bike lane, there's not a lot of carbon of the people using it, but still the asphalt and concrete to create that bike path have an impact on the carbon. And then we can see at the top, these high-rise buildings in steel or in concrete, they have the highest amount of impact on the built environment. So this app kind of says, okay, we have all these pieces of the built environment, we feed them through this carbon pyramid that we have, and then the idea is from that, we can begin to make decisions of what kind of structural systems we would use, what kind of facade systems we would use, and based on the scale of the buildings, getting different amounts of carbon impact out of that. So in a way, we can say that using this app is like putting on this pair of carbon goggles, that we can see the world in a new light, that we can see that instead of just a building in isolation, we can look around the urban environment and get a better idea of what the carbon impact is. So when you're looking at the built environment, all of a sudden everything in the environment has some kind of level of CO2 impact. And some of it's for the better and some for the worse. But we can begin to say, okay, what is the carbon value of a building versus the sidewalks, versus planting trees, versus water features, and how does this come together? What is the total combination of this carbon impact? And right now, we can see that there's no question that carbon is the #1 topic in the building industry. And we can see within Denmark that the latest building regulations also require some kind of LCA analysis being done when applying for new building permits. So we know that the industry still has a long ways to go, but we feel that looking beyond the building, that we can make a much larger impact looking at the urban environment. And I think I'd like to take the time now to hand it over to Ashkan, who will run through how this app is put together and also show a little bit of a demonstration of how the app works.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Okay, so the project was kind of bigger, like in the beginning, that it started involving many people, excluding me, working on how we can perceive basically carbon emission, how we can measure things, and involve many people. And then it came to this point that people want to share thoughts and ideas, and it was a not very straight way to do it. It was like, okay, Excel files, pie charts, and there are many things I can print, but not really you can share one model or one piece of entity with everybody, including all the clients that we want to share with, or even within ourselves. And also there was one exhibition coming up, and we wanted to show what we're working on. Still in Berlin, if you there before 22nd of March, you can go and visit. So that was the initiative to combine the idea of sharing and having everything in one place that could be scalable in the future, and also showcase our work in this exhibition. Yeah, this is a picture I took it myself with the iPad. My colleagues working on the app. I will show you later how it works. The idea was that the start of the project was to create somehow a workflow, and I divided into 3 different sections about how we can connect Rhino, Grasshopper in this case, and a little bit Revit, how we can get the fresh data from the tools we are already using in our office, and all the geometries with their attributes and all this calculation. And we use a couple of adds-on and works that have been done before in the company, such as Phoenix from, I think, from Finland department, and Green Scenario, which was developed by one of our colleagues for landscape. So both of them working with geometries within different levels. Phoenix working with structure, basically estimating how much structure you would get from basically estimating the structure that you could have in this building blocks if you want to have a kind of a guesstimation of what is going to be in the larger scale. And Green Scenario works with geometries in landscape, but the thing we took it from Green Scenario was to how to work with JSON type files. And then I put everything together, and also we have also a tool that we use day to day. The toolbox it's already like it's always work in practice tool that we use, and we set everything up, all the calculation and everything. And the question was how we can just take it to somewhere that everyone could access, and could be also not too fancy or expensive. And I'm just leaning towards how we just wanted to leverage from open source tools in the market. So we found out, and I think it wasn't really difficult to find out, that web as a medium was the most pervasive ones amongst us, so everybody can access. So we wanted to go online. and we found one of the tools more production ready, also user friendly, and also the team behind it, there are super cool people kind of trying to tackle problems rather than selling products. I'm just showing this, like this was one stage before we wanted to figure out how we can send all the data to web, which is a speckle. And we try to use a speckle as many things in the project. So speckle as an tool is like there are, I think once, I think 2 days ago when I was talking to them, I think it was like make this conversion easier for you, and it is in a way. So basically you use a speckle to convert your files to somewhere else, like from Revit to Rhino or all the, like there are many connectors. But we use a speckle, or kind of we exhausted a speckle in different ways. We use speckle as database, we use speckle as converter, connector, and rendering machine, basically, on web. So we needed to set up our workflow, all of the things we've done, all the calculation into another script using the API somehow to send it to a speckle. And I'm just showing this. That is not that difficult, probably, because you need to just have your data, and then you have to organize them in a way that you can send it to database. And the third part was how we could also, so now we have this data, how we're gonna take this data and geometries and take it to this web canvas, and everybody can see what is it about. And that was kind of a challenging part, also the part that also we wanted to investigate more. Like the whole presentation is about web apps, so it's more about this part, but this is all the work behind it, and this is the solution that we found out, and this is the extension of the solution. So we wanted to work with modern JavaScript. We wanted to work with a modern way of deploying apps. We wanted to work with modern way of receiving data or post or get data. So all the combination is out there. It's not like that we invented that. We just put things together and gather all of this technology with Speckle and what was like behind this, like underneath this like tip of iceberg, to figure out how we can showcase the big model. I hope it plays by itself. Okay. And basically, it's a web app. This is a demo. This is basically beginning of what we are going to explore more, also in the future. How we can give power to designers, architects, with the app we have, with all the tools we provide, and how we can access to the data. So the interface now is super simple because this is for early stages design, and then we want to compare different scenarios. You're looking at one now, but we are able to define multiple streams on Speckle and navigate through different scenarios and look at the different parts. Now it's color coded. That's the goggle that we were talking about. That you have this goggle and you see the most impactful building in terms of carbon footprint in here, and then you can turn this on and off potentially. Now you see one image, and when you click on it, you should be able to click on each object. You should be able to the percentage of the structure that it caused this carbon footprint, facade, and the total carbon footprint. Yeah. And that's it, but I was hoping we can also show it like on the web, and maybe also you can go and play around with it and maybe give us some feedback. But I don't know how, because I don't see any computer here. Yeah. But yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. I of course have some questions, as always, but I will open it to the floor first. Anybody have any questions, comments? Yes. Sorry, I don't. This looks funny on live stream. Just running around. Please speak to her. Thank you. Yep.
So my question would be, which are the parameters you use to judge if building it's in which category? So you said you talked about facades, structures, but which are specifically the data you are collecting of each building to put it in a classification?
Yeah, this is not my department, but I can tell you that in the calculation department, the people I work with, they're working with different tectonics. So they're working with structure, like foundation, structure, facade elements, floors, and they're like all separated in the calculation. And we have our own database of the EPDs that kind of validates how we use the data. And that this is also for measurement, so how much of a floor you have in this block. And if you want to turn that block, if you want to use, for example, CLT as a structure, how that makes difference in your case. But this is the way we validate and use the data, and we basically multiply it by the quantities. Yeah.
Hi. Hi. Yeah, I'm Jari. Is it an open source project?
Very good question. I still don't know. I think the idea is to make it as I like. Today we're working also with the same themes, and there was this idea of creating the like not working on the same thing all the offices in the world. So in some part of it, I think it's going to be public and it's going to be open for collaboration even. And the other parts are that it has some kind of ownership to it. I don't know, like I don't have authority to say that it is going to be that way or not.
Anybody else? Super fascinating project. I always enjoy these presentations where you put up like it's not that hard, and there's a huge like diagram of like flow of like different. I don't understand half of that stuff of what's going on. I'm always super impressed on the calculation stuff. Like, and obviously we're moving through I thought the green transition, David, you mentioned was super fascinating. As we move into like cleaner materials, so obviously there's loads of money and research going into using like hydrogen to power steel mills, for example. How do you see that kind of like, as the manufacturing industry cleans itself, how do you see that kind of impacting the way that you work this out? Because you had your beautiful chart on timber, steel, concrete. How do you see that kind of impacting this kind of calculation work?
Yeah, I think that as the manufacturers also move to cleaner fuels for their fabrication, that'll also help the carbon footprint as well, because that'll lower the amount of carbon used to produce all of these products that we use in the construction industry. So I think it'll only have a benefit in the end. I think it's a question of how long it will take to make that transition, and how certain are we that that transition is correct.
Well, sooner rather than later, I hope. So, I mean, I have a really, so this is like a fascinating tool. If we rang Google right now, or anybody else, and like we gave you $1 billion tomorrow, what's like your end goal for this? Where would you like this project to go? Like, if you had unlimited resources?
Like for me, it's just like accuracy and transparency. So I feel like the idea of open source or giving to public is create more like a peers review on whatever is happening, because I feel like sometimes all the calculation is not the way it will be like for the buildings in the future. And I think as much as we gather more data, it will be more visible, like easier to understand what the impacts are. And the other part is transparency, because this, like, I hope not about like sustainability, that it was like a big thing, and then like industry tries to like have this green marker on everything.
Yep.
So I don't want this happen. So this could also be, if we have this gateway towards what we do as a calculation, I think that would benefit all of us for transparency, and you see that nothing is basically LCA washed.
Yep. Yep. And that will happen. Like, we are going to have that kind of greenwashing experience for a short amount of time, probably, but I hope not. So I really agree with you on that point. we're well ahead of time, so I'm going to like ask you some more questions to fill a little bit more time. Like, how do people get involved? Like, how do you want people to jump in? You guys are doing a really interesting hack this weekend. So, like, how do people get involved in this? Like, if they want to, like, contact you guys, just like, hey, I want to help. Like, is it that simple?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. We already like because the projects are kind of rhymes together today, and also with whatever we are doing, and also other offices. I think that is also this could be the beginning of the collaboration, and like whoever is interested, just reach out. I think we can also work together and apply for bigger funds to
let's get more money. Let's get more money. Yeah, that sounds good. I would like personally formally want to get you into the Zero community and get you guys to present this globally. I think this is a fascinating thing, and like so I'm throwing the invitation to you guys. Let's get you in there like this weekend. Any other questions before we? Well, there's one question. Where's the microphone? If you could pass the microphone over, please. Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you for the good presentation. I have a question as suggestion, I would say, because these are very good works that being done all around, and most of them are, if not private, founded by European Union or governments. But I think a good outcome of all these work can be involving politicians or some people in charge of tax in these kind of events. It's a big thing, but it's gonna happen one day. And they can see, for example, because building a timber structure is kind of more expensive than concrete, maybe. But if they balance the taxation, this can help. If you pay more tax for a concrete or more carbon estimated building and less for sustainable building, I think this makes more sense.
Would you like to respond to that statement?
That was a suggestion, right?
Well, I mean, you can respond whether you agree, disagree, your thoughts on the topic, of course.
Yeah.
Sorry, because you're a private sector, more or less.
Yeah.
And for having this information, you have to involve municipality. Municipality has to probably sooner or later set some regulations to collect this information, other than only drawings from the building builders, let's say, to give you this information to insert it in your calculations. This makes more sense, in my opinion.
I think more we do this kind of stuff, more we care about the numbers and our impact, the more awareness can we just emit from our work. And then it eventually, I don't know how we can force authorities to do like this kind of stuff you're saying, like put a rule, do this, less taxation. But I think this could be a first start, and I think I need to talk to my lawyer about this.
Don't hold anybody to what they say. David?
I think a tool like this is actually is really beneficial to everyone, because it kind of lowers this carbon, what the concept of carbon is and where the carbon is in the world. That everybody can go into an app like this and visually click around and get a better understanding of what the impact of their decisions on the larger environment. Because yes, it'll cost more to build a timber home than a concrete home, but what is the long-term impact of that? How can we all benefit if people maybe invest a little bit more now? We can save a lot of money later. And I think that with a tool like this, where you can kind of take this data that we have and try these different proposals and changing the construction types, you can get a better view of what the future holds for us.
And there is a lot of discussion right now on like total cost of ownership, total life cycle costs. Like we're starting to see a lot of the data now where you can make decisions on materials, products you put into buildings, which you can say, okay, but if I go and spend, 100,000 to build this house, and it will cost me this much over 50 years, including the carbon cost, monetary cost, maintenance cost, electricity cost. But if I go and spend 200,000 over here, it would actually cost me a lot less over 50 years. And you think like, for a house, not so much. But like in the UK, they build like 300 to 400 schools a year. So like think about that like en masse. And that's when politicians start to get interested, because now you're talking about economies of scale in cost. I mean, and it's just talking about this. I think you're totally right. Getting tools which are accessible for everybody to use, and just talking about it. BLOXHUB talking about it. Us talking about it on LinkedIn. The more people that talk about it, the more politicians will pay attention. But you know, they have a lot of things to do. But you know, we as people have to bring it to their attention. So it's good. Good point. Question over there. If you can pass the microphone, just kind of don't throw it. Just pass it along. Be great. Thank you.
Hi guys. First of all, thanks a lot for the presentation. Super interesting to see what you are working on. And I actually have two questions. So the first question was, you said, hey, can we play around with it? Like, can we do like a live demo? And you said like we can also play around and give you some like feedback on that.
Yeah.
Is that available, or are you gonna just show us on your like devices, or how is that gonna work?
I think it's available, but I don't know. I can share. Maybe we can check this before we share.
We haven't checked the availability.
Yeah.
But at least you can come by one of us and we can show you the app.
Okay, perfect. That's super cool. I would love to like play around with that. And the second question is maybe more like a technical question. And you said that you worked a lot with Speckle to make that work. And you said you also exhausted the tool as is. Mm-hmm. Does that mean that you are now like co-developing with Speckle the next generation of the product, or you said like, okay, we need a new partner? Like, where are you at?
And I think they're just in the beginning of developing their tools. Like, it's quite well known, but I think there's a lot to do. And when like we talk with them, and they also we like pinpoint some ideas, and you will know that it's gonna be more than whatever it is in here. And it just, I think it's quite scalable, because they're working with different technology, and the technologies are they're not stopping. Yeah. And it's gonna be more than whatever it is now, and it could be also something that it makes it much easier than whatever we are doing right now today here in, I don't know, 6 months, because it's quite fast.
Yeah, and I think the beauty of Speckle is it's not a very large company, so they're also very responsive. So if we have a need, they respond. And I think that's one of the beauty of a small tech company like Speckle, is they listen and they respond. And I think they respond really quickly as well.
Okay. Thanks for answering the questions.
Great. Thank you very much. And a big round of applause to the Henning Larsen team. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So next up, we have Palle and Søren. Hopefully they're here. They're going to be talking about some real-life insights into sensors and IoT.
Yeah. I'm going to introduce them very briefly. Is this the...
No, that's not the microphone. This is the microphone. Here is the microphone. So, thank you very much.
All right. Can everybody hear me? Yep. Fantastic. All right, so this is the power, and this is the ultimate power. All right. Friends are in the house. Excellent. All right, how are you all doing? Did you manage to meet some new people? All right, in case you haven't met me, I'm Michael Ambjørn. I'm the CEO of PropTech Denmark. We're an association nestled in the corner of BLOXHUB over there by the water, with the sun coming through the window, where we have a bunch of startups sitting with us, and also a few investors, and also sometimes some of those very large, well-established corporates that ultimately run the built environment around us. And actually, we're bringing a few people this weekend. And actually, one of them is Nikolai here from Core, who is an expert in corporate startup innovation. And he's here as a mentor. So if you haven't tapped his brain yet, you definitely should. The other thing we're doing is we're bringing two mic'd up people here to basically talk about the work that they're doing to basically change a set of paradigms in what is otherwise quite often a little bit dusty, sometimes a little bit inward-looking and old-fashioned industry, where it's actually quite clear that we don't necessarily know as much as we could or should about the buildings that we live and work in. We're in the Nordics right now. We spend 90% of our times indoors, actually. Just for a moment, think about that data point. And actually, on that topic, we have two super relevant people here. So first of all, Palle, the CEO of Ubiquitsense. You might see some Ubiquitsense sensors around these buildings. He will tell you much more about how that basically, in some ways, vintage technology can be used in radical new ways.
Would you? Oh.
And then after that, we have Søren from Climate, who actually has a PhD related to air quality indoor and out and so on. and he'll also share some radical and interesting data points to help you innovate. Before we get started, though, I just want to check in. Has everybody met somebody new here? Put your hand up if you have not met somebody new. Wow, you are highly engaged. All right. Have you all met somebody new? Then put your hand up. Okay. But you can still meet more, right? So make sure that you go and talk to these two gentlemen afterwards, or come and find me if you want to know more about our association. And of course, pick this man's brains. It's worthwhile. Without further ado, Palle, the stage is yours.
Thank you.
And the power.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael.
And this is the point you clap. Yeah!
So I think I'm off to a bad start today. I couldn't find my comb this morning. I deleted the title slide of my presentation, and now my technology was just called vintage. I think, of course, it's kick-ass modern technology. I hope you'll agree when we're done. But we're a Danish company. We're 7 years old. I guess maybe what Michael called vintage is the fact that we build our technology in what was previously used in mobile phones. So the cameras in mobile phones is the starting point of what we're doing. So in that respect, I don't know, it's vintage. It really bothers me a little bit. Let's move on. For buildings, there are really some strong drivers for change and the way we operate and use buildings. Obviously, the energy crisis that we're in the middle of, or on the other side of, or whatever, has had a huge impact on the way that we look at buildings. When we started 7 years ago, and when we had the first product ready about 5 years ago, what we could do was actually feed live occupancy data. So the number of people in any room, we could feed that into the BMS system, which is what controls the ventilation, heating, air conditioning, lighting in big buildings. And thereby we could help reduce the energy consumption. It worked really well. But there was zero interest in the market 5 years ago for reducing the energy consumption in big office buildings. So we had to shift gears and do something else. But now coming back, energy is a major cost driver for a lot of big companies. And at the same time, the way we use buildings is completely different on the other side of the pandemic. Then we have all the EU regulations, energy performance certifications, and so on and so forth. That also is a strong driver for doing something about the way we operate and use buildings. And what we're seeing more and more is that large pension funds that invest in new buildings put requirements in about those buildings being green and low on emission. And actually also there's a lot in terms of selling old buildings. They have to be energy efficient or be upgradable to become energy efficient. Otherwise the big pension funds no longer will invest in them. So there are really some strong drivers for reducing the energy consumption in buildings. And the problem there is that most of buildings today are actually operated in a very intelligent way. We have several examples of that where you have this BMS system that controls the energy sources, heating, ventilation, lighting, air conditioning. It's usually delivered at the time of selling the building, and the people that takes it over don't want to touch that system. So it operates on a fixed schedule. Turn on the heat in the morning, turn it off in the evening. Ventilation runs at full steam all day long, and it's really a big waste of energy. So what we're doing is we're looking at how people actually use the building and all the different places in the building. We feed all the data into a dashboard. I'm not going to bore you with that, but it basically helps companies understand how, when, where the buildings are being used. And you can use the data live to reduce the energy consumption, but you can also you can use it to get a better overview, insights into how your building is being used and what deficiencies that you have, and how people want to use the building or don't want to use the building. I'm going to skip this one real quick, if I can. So it all starts with a sensor device, which is the vintage technology, apparently. You might see it in some of the meeting rooms, open areas in BLOXHUB. What it does is that it anonymously counts the people in any type of space that we're looking at. So we're measuring all the meeting rooms here. We're measuring some of the open flex working spaces that you maybe are using this weekend. That data is fed into our cloud platform, and that basically can help companies reduce the energy consumption from day one. And this is what I talked about before, feeding the live occupancy data into the BMS system, starting to reduce the ventilation, the heating, and so on. And then as you run analysis over a period of time, you can start then to build an understanding of how does the employees or the users of the building actually like to use that building. And it very often turns out that they don't like to use it the way you thought they would use it. And again, this has to do also with the shift in the way we work, thanks to COVID. The way I normally put it is that before COVID, companies would have a set of facilities, desks, meeting rooms, other types of spaces, and the employees would really have to fit into that space. During COVID, there was no one in the building, so it didn't really matter. But after COVID, we've all gotten used to work partly from home. And it means that if the companies don't right-size the facilities that they have and adapt to the needs of the users, people will just stay home and work from home. They will not come in and have the informal conversations and so on that really drives the culture of a company. And also the innovation in innovative companies will suffer. There was a study by Microsoft with 60,000 employees, basically showing that the innovation was really suffering during COVID. So it's really important for companies to get people back in, and they can't do it by just forcing people to come back to work. I think that only works for Elon Musk, and he fires half of his staff anyway. But in most companies, employees have gotten used to working from home part of the time, and if they don't like to come into the office, they will just work from home. So you really have to understand how the facility is being used and how you need to adapt it to the needs of the users. And then some of the things that we're talking about here today is the value of combining data. So this is an example of an office where we've measured the number of people in the room. This is the curve here. Combining that with the temperature, CO2 levels, that starts to add more value because we can then understand what is actually required in terms of controlling the building with the BMS system once we have all the data and basically what is needed by the users in that building. Energy savings, we talk a lot about that. This is an example from BLOXHUB. Looking at the occupancy in a specific room, Rome is a meeting room over there. We looked at, this is the month of June, I think, last year. So we looked at the occupancy over the entire month, how many hours per day was that room in use. But then we also looked at how many people were in that room. And what we saw, that half of the time the room was not in use. Ventilation was still running though. Then about a little less than 20% of the time, there was only a single person in the room. Another roughly 20% of the time, 2 people in there. And then only a very limited amount of time was there more than 3 people in the room. And nonetheless, the heating, ventilation is running at 100% all the time. And we started then to simulate what can we achieve if we start adjusting, in particular, ventilation, lighting to the number of people in the room. And there's a huge savings potential for doing that. Unfortunately, in this building, it's a classic example of nobody wanting to touch the BMS system, so we haven't really made progress with that. But we're working currently with a big company in Jutland, where they're actually implementing this and controlling the BMS system based on this data here. Last example is from an insurance company out here in Nordhavn. We're looking at, in that building, we're counting how many people go through the doors, all the doors. So we know during the day, we know during the day exactly how many people are in there. And this is an example of 2 days. One is in July, the other is in August. In July, obviously, vacation season in Denmark. Peak occupancy was around 150 people. In August, it's about 450 people. Even though there's this huge difference on 2 different days, the building every day is operated the same way. All the 5 floors are open every day. Ventilation, heating, cooling is running there. But what if we start to use a more radical approach to how we use buildings? What if, if people come in at 8 o'clock in the morning, we tell them, please use the first or the second floor. We're not opening the higher floors until later in the day. We're not starting to use energy in those floors until later in the day. And again, we simulated how much energy could be saved there. And it could be on a very high load day, around 30%. On a low load day, like a Monday and Friday, up to 43% of the energy by basically taking a more radical approach to how we use the building, asking people to use specific floors depending on when they come in during the day. So that was just a quick introduction to what you can do if you really get the detailed insights into how people use and interact with buildings. That's what we're working on with our vintage technology.
All right, thank you very much, Palle. I think if your technology is vintage, ours is going to be so old school you have no idea, because we only measure temperature and humidity. That's like, I think that's the lowest of when you talk about indoor climate that you can do. Okay, so my name is Søren Andersen. I'm the co-founder of Climate. I'm the CTO, but we are like 6 people, so everybody got a C-level title. But I'm the geeky in the company. I have a background, as Michael said, in civil engineering. And during my PhD study, I looked into the interaction between occupant behavior and the indoor environment in dwellings. So what we do in Climate is that this is our motto, is that we handle sensor data and user feedback from your indoor climate and turn them into profit, health, and well-being. So what that means is that we take something rather technical and turn it into something people can actually understand and act upon. So I spent 10 years at the university, so for me it's pretty easy to understand the data, and I can look at temperature, humidity, air quality, and kind of assess what to do right now. And I can also look across and see how those 3 balance each other out. And I guess if you spend your weekend on a hackathon, you could probably also do the same, because you are a pretty clever people, I guess. But you are also not my clients. So my clients, they typically work or live in housing associations where they've been placed by the municipality. They don't have a lot, they really focus on something else in their lives than technologies and data and looking at scatter plots and whatever. They have a different focus in their lives. And it's those people that we are trying to help. All right, so one of our products is called Climate Home. And it's a tool to collect indoor climate data to document, analyze, visualize, and propose actions for a better indoor climate. So again, take something technical and turn it into something people can understand. So we have different products. We have something for offices that we are working together with Palle on. And what I'm going to present today is our product for private residents. And this could be one of them. This is a building in Esbjerg, in western part of Jutland. And they have installed, or they could install, the Climate Home system in one of their apartments. And then they could follow the temperature, the humidity in the apartment. They could also follow the risk of mold formation in the apartment. They could also see, okay, maybe we could talk to these people about reducing the temperature and save a little bit of energy. That would be great. It would create a lot of value to these people. But what we want to do, and the way that you should use the product, is to install it in all of the apartments, and then you can get an overview, okay, which of these apartments should I do something in? Like if I'm the landlord, which of these tenants should I contact and help? And also, you still want to measure the good apartments, because from these you can learn, okay, how should you actually act in these buildings, in this building? And I will take this learning from here and move it up to here, and hopefully that will go from red to green. That's our goal and our ambition. So the background the background data for this project and this product came from a lot of investigations that we did. We did it with a company called Belfort. Maybe some of you know it. It's the biggest service provider in the world. And they go, if there's a water damage in your house, they will come and dry it out and help you. But they also do investigation of the indoor environment and to assess, to see, okay, there's mold. How do we get rid of it, and how do we prevent it from coming back? And that's the way that they do that, is they use one of our products. So this is the result from some of these investigations. Each dot represents the mean relative humidity for a specific time period. And these are all from apartments where there were either mold, like visible mold, the tenants were, or perhaps the tenants were reacting to it. So like they had itchy eyes, or they were coughing a lot, or just they had some kind of, they were just nervous about it. So it's all like high-risk apartments. And what you can see here, the blue area, it represents the relative humidity where mold grows very well. No, sorry, the opposite. I'm sorry, it's been a long day. The opposite. So if it's within the blue, you're good, then there's no risk of mold. But these are all from apartments where there were mold. So there's like, this can't be right. Something's wrong. Because if, do you get it, right? Yeah, good. I'm sorry, it's been a long day. So what we saw here was that something's wrong. These are all from high-risk apartments, but our data says there should not be any risk. And that's, of course, because, I'll just jump to this. This is where we put our sensor. So this is an apartment. We put our sensor here on a nice, warm inner wall with good air circulation around it. And of course, there's not going to be any mold here. This is not where mold grows. Mold grows here, on where there's a thermal bridge. So where the wall and the roof connects, where you put in the windows, where there's a cold surface, and the air can go and condensate, and so the relative humidity can increase. And what we did in climate is that we found a way so we could take data from here, temperature and relative humidity, and we can actually calculate what's happening over here on the thermal bridge. And now some people say, why don't you just put the sensor over here? That would be a lot more precise and a lot smarter. Yes, if you know where the thermal bridge is, then it's smart, but we don't know. And you might put a sensor here. What about this thermal bridge here? No, we think it's much smarter to put it here and then use all our knowledge about buildings and building physics and so on and put it into the algorithm and then use that instead. This is an example from an apartment. I'm sorry, it's in Danish, but I think you can figure it out. You can see here, this is the mean temperature. It's 21.4. That's pretty good. Actually, it's really good. And relative humidity of 64%. It's high in the winter. It should be, well, I guess in here it's going to be around 27 probably. So 64 is high, but it's still below 25%, which was like an upper limit. If it's above 75, then mold will grow. So here it's high, but it's okay. This is some pictures from the apartment. And I guess you can see it, but all the black stuff here, you can see it here and down here, this is mold. So if you live here, you will get sick, basically. And then, so the whole idea is, if you look at this, there's no risk. If you just take the measurements directly, you have it on a nice warm inner wall, you will not see that there's a risk. But when you look at this, see there's a high risk. It's not even we are beyond the risk. It's here. So you have to react. And so the calculation that we did is we take those measurements, we analyze it, and now we get a risk. We translate it into a mold risk, we call it. And now, instead of being a 1 from the data up here, we run our algorithm, and now it's a risk 4.2, which is high. It's a scale from 1 to 7. And the way that we use it is, so you install the sensor and then you just run the calculation all the time. And then suddenly you will see, okay, now it's increasing. It's going up, up, up. It's above the limit now, above a benchmark. And then the housing association will send a person out to this apartment, knock on the door and say, you are going to have a problem very soon. We should react. How can we help you? That's how our system works. And now the next part is like, so how do we help them? It's going to sound very old school, but actually we send out a newsletter in paper. It's not an app, it's not an email, it's not anything, it's paper. Because this type of this piece of paper you can put on your refrigerator, you can put it up and it will be visible all the time and you can see, yes, I have a problem. It should be very clear from up here. And down here, it's difficult to read, but here you get recommendations on, okay, what can you actually do to get rid of the mold or to prevent the mold from coming back? And that's one of the learnings from my PhD and from one of my colleagues' studies, is that if you want to give recommendations on, and you want to change people's behavior, the recommendation has to be specific. It has to be for you, not everybody. If you aim for everybody, you hit nobody. So it has to be specific for you. It has to be realistic, and it has to be concrete. So it's like not just you have to ventilate 3 times every day. No, it has to be you have to ventilate in the morning after you shower, because we can see that from your data that you don't do it. You have to ventilate after you're cooked and just before you go to bed at 10. And that's what you get with our system. Of course, there's also a system where the building owner can follow all the data and all this kind of things. But that's kind of like, if you don't have that, you don't have anything, right? So of course we had that. But really, what's new in our product and what we're really proud of is actually that page over there, because we know that works, even though it sounds very simple. Thank you.
Super interesting stuff, guys. Oh, I'm going to run this way. Thank you very much. I mean, I think for both of you, it's really interesting because, you know, you're both looking at the we don't know what we don't measure aspect of the world. It's a conversation we have all the time here at the hackathon. We don't understand what we don't know. I mean, and you're obviously approaching this with technology, I mean, but it has a huge social economic impact. For the climate aid, I mean, I'm British. We're very known for our damp, moldy homes. That's what we're known for, which is kind of funny. But unfortunately, last year, as you probably know, there was a case where a child, unfortunately, got sick and died. And for the first time, the landlord is actually being held culpable for not repairing the home. Yeah. And it should never get to that stage at all. So 20 million homes, we need to put that in just to the UK alone, I think, ish, give or take. Yeah. But I mean, like, talking about commercial space for a moment, like, you're measuring the use of space and energy. Do you see, like, commercial space over the next few years, like, fundamentally changing, like, shrinking, like the way the square meterage we have for commercial? Like, how do you see that kind of moving forward with your work?
Yeah, I mean, there are people that are a lot smarter than me looking at the data, and, you know, that what do you call it, surplus of square meters for offices around the world, and it's just going ballistic. And at the same time, there's this trend towards shorter and shorter lease time for offices. I think 10 years ago, a 10-year lease was very common, and now it's down to 2 to 3 years. Oh. And that also means that the companies owning the buildings, like the pension funds, they need to understand how the tenants are performing, whether they're about to outgrow a space or, you know, shrink out of it and take action based on that. So really, asymptotically, we're going towards this space as a service where you only consume the space that you really need. And that all lends itself towards data. And this whole crisis and the changes that has come about because of COVID really means that you can't operate a commercial building the way you did 5 years ago. It just have to be different.
I mean, look at the way WeWork has transformed from one of the most valuable companies in the world pre-pandemic to now one of the highest liability companies in the world post-pandemic. It's
ironic part
crazy.
of that is that they were actually sort of about to disrupt this whole space. They were just probably a bit too early in doing things and doing a lot of weird things on the side,
exactly.
Right? But the trend was there already.
Super interesting. On the climate side then for humidity, and like you both joke that your tech is old school, but this is construction. So the fact you've said that this is sensors and we can use the internet is kind of like very futuristic for us in kind of the standard space. Kind of like you finding from a landlord housing association, this is something they really want to pick up on, or is there still kind of like a barrier to kind of like jump on this sort of, because it is important. This is about people. And at the end of the day, how are you kind of approaching the challenge of kind of getting this tech inside?
No, I think the landlords, they are moving forward. They would like to do it. They would like to install it. There was a few years ago, maybe just a year ago, so everybody thought we should install sensors that can measure temperature, humidity, and CO2. But the tenants didn't want that, because now you can like look at into what I'm doing all the time.
Okay.
And I think that's why, like, the landlords wanted to install it, but the tenants didn't, and that was kind of holding it back. And also the price was also holding it back, like who should pay, because the CO2 sensor is quite expensive.
Okay.
But I think now, they are looking into it, and they are very keen on installing, well, at least our system, because it's simple and it's cheap.
The magic word in construction. It's cheap.
It's cheap, yeah. And you get a lot of value, and you can actually lower your insurance price.
Oh, that's good.
With our system.
That's good. Yeah, as soon as you mentioned the word insurance and lowering of insurance, there is a massive pluses. All of a sudden, people thinking, "Oh, that's good. That's good. That's really, really nice." Cool. Does anybody have the mic? Then we have some questions. We have some questions. Can I grab the microphone, please? Where the microphone has gone. It's there. Hold on. Because we're live streaming, so we need to make sure we have the microphone. Hey, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah. Hey, probably question for both. If I remember, but if I had taken a thermal camera, so would it been showing on the image? How do you think, like, where the mold does actually grow, because there's like this heat bridge, or what are you saying?
Yeah, it would show like this. It's colder in the corner, like where you saw the black spots. It would be colder, definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
That's not cheap either yet.
No.
But and a question about that, you had basically a nice tech to kind of measure and give signal, but most of these, I'm not a like engineer on that part, but I don't think that you have a one pipe. So how are you going to control it room based if that's
true.
piping?
So to do it room based, you need for the ventilation, you need these variable VAV valves that can control it on a room basis. And there's some nice companies, there's a Swedish Lindab is doing a very nice product where they can retrofit that kind of thing, and then you can communicate directly with that. And then you can start doing that. But you're right, there is a, it doesn't work everywhere, but I think you can do some retrofits, and I think the return on investment for that combined with our sensors and a device like that is actually pretty short.
That's nice, because we had a whole period of 10 years in this building as an example where the buildings are kind of passive in the way they behave on like an entire. My office is the same. The entire floor is passive. You can't control areas, and so that's amazing to retrofit it, and that's superb. Sorry.
So is it already like integrated? Do you have an API to control it?
Yeah. So we have an interface on the BACnet protocol, which is a standard for building management systems. And there are also APIs, MQTT, Bluetooth, you name it. That's the name of the game these days. You need to be able to deliver data in 10 different ways.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
The one who asked how cheap is it left, but how cheap is it that your home device? Do you want to tell?
Yeah, it's 10 euros a month per apartment, and you only need one sensor per apartment.
So like a beer and a half a month.
Ish.
To keep your child safe.
I thank you for both presentations. I have a question about VOC sensor and in relation to mold, because VOC is a pretty technical question, but I'm dealing with for some time. So we're measuring 2.5 and 10 ppm particles in the air with VOC sensor. How do you relate this information, probably combined with temperature and humidity, with the mold? Can you actually notice if these particles are mold in the air, spreading in the air, or not? And have you done any kind of research and development with Belfort with this, or not?
No. Well, first of all, VOC and particles are two different things. That I guess it's not really important, but it is different. There is a sensor that so if you want to, you can measure the VOC profile, and then combine that with a profile of how the specific fungus species, what that extrapolate. I don't know what comes out of that. It's pretty difficult. I know there's a French sensor that can do it, but he could not speak English, so he will not sell it to me.
It's probably very it sounds expensive as well.
I think it's it's more than 10 euros a month,
Okay.
Definitely. But you can do it. It's very, very expensive. I think what we are doing is actually we're trying to use, or we looked a little bit into using VOC sensors to predict mold, because in the lifetime of mold, when it grows, there's VOC coming out of it, and when it dies, it's particles coming out. So you can actually see if the VOC level in your home or your building or whatever starts to increase, and you didn't bring in new furniture or whatever, use a new soap, it could like indicate something is growing underneath the floor, perhaps. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's very difficult. Yeah. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, guys. We are at time. Super interesting stuff. To get in touch with you, just your contact details were on screen for a second. That's how we can, like, if we want to buy stuff from you, give you money to invest, like, that's how we get in touch.
Yeah, we're also on the Slack channel, I think.
On the Slack channel as well for this weekend. Fantastic.
And
Big
find us on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Fantastic. Big round of applause for Palle and Søren. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we're going to do a quick microphone change because I'm hogging one of the microphones. So for the people, you have an opportunity to come in if you're standing out on the edge. I hope you guys are comfortable at home, or maybe you're on a beach or in a pub or wherever you are watching this online. Next up, we have Greg Howes from the US, who's come over, who's a very important founder of the AEC hackathon movement, and he's going to talk to us about mass timber and how we can move into a more timber-based material construction industry. So, round of applause. Is he nearly ready? He is. To Greg, thank you very much.
Thank you. Just want to ask quick, how many people were at the mass timber thing yesterday afternoon? One. Okay. Well, I have to try to summarize all of that in 20 minutes. Real quick, my story. I'm a builder. I've done a lot of remodels, built a lot of houses, been doing it for 25 years. Got really interested in, like, well, this whole mass timber thing and building an offsite. And mass timber's only really been a thing in the States for 10 years. So if you look at this, like, well, how have you been doing it since 1993? I found a Swiss business partner who's been doing it in Switzerland for many years and moved to the US in 2003. So he's been doing it 20, and I partnered up with him, and generally our idea was, let's bring processes, technologies, CNC machines, software, and bring that to Oregon, which produces the most lumber in any state, and let's try to localize and use the wood here to make mass timber buildings. That's what we're doing right now. We have the factory in Oregon. I'll show you some of our projects. I want to go quickly through the projects, but it gives you my perspective and experience in the industry. This is literally what we do. We're not architects, we're not engineers. We take design and we cut custom kitted parts that go to the job site to a general contractor. So we're working with all the CAD BIM data, and we're modeling for fabrication in software that can work with the machines. Here's a few quick projects that are coming up, residential and commercial. This is the Adidas headquarters, hybrid building. We did all the big heavy timber beams in it. It's also in Portland, Oregon. This is a big project, $1.5 billion. This is the new Portland airport. This is 3.6 hectares of wood. That's how big it is. That will open up in about a year and a half. It's a massive thing, so if you ever come to Portland, Oregon, that's what you're going to see when you show up. We are one of hundreds of companies that worked on this. We did some of the wood components in the ceiling. Many other companies have done other work. Another in Washington State. This was the first building to use CLT structurally in the US. That was about 8 years ago. That's in Portland. This is something of interest. In Oregon, I've met people here who've been there. Since it produces so much wood, there's a massive research center in Corvallis, Oregon, focused specifically on timber technologies and mass timber. And we did a lot of modeling for that building. Downtown Portland, another example. This is a school for the Native Americans that live on the coast. They wanted to move up higher on the mountain, so we did the whole school. That's a luxury home in California. This is a net zero energy, passive house certified, made out of CLT. I believe it's the first one in North America. It's also a luxury home. This, for example, is a $10 million house. So we're doing everything from small cabins to extreme luxury homes. This is a crazy one. This is a, just to give you an example, it's a $25 million house. It's extremely complex in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, because everything's curved. How would you do that if you didn't model everything and fabricate everything digitally? Imagine the framer freaked out who was supposed to frame this extremely good framer, but you're in Jackson Hole with all the snow. You've got to build this. Imagine trying to do this on site conventionally. Just wouldn't work. And then, so here's some other more traditional looking homes. That one's in Hawaii. When we work this really well, here's an example of what happens. We send that frame to Hawaii. A guy who's a big windsurfer and two of his friends who are not builders, they're not construction people, they had the foundation in with our plans. They had the entire frame up in less than 1 week. 1 week. They still had to do the plumbing, the finishing, and everything else, but it makes everything go quickly. Nike Bridge, complex as well. This is one's really pretty freaky. There's an electronic music festival in New York City. They had sold millions of dollars of tickets to the music festival, but they didn't have a stage. Kind of a stressful thing. We were still discussing the design. These are 130 feet tall, 40 meters. They didn't have a stage. They'd sold the ticket. They said, we need a stage. Here's our idea. Fabricate it, engineer it, truck it from Portland, Oregon to New York City, and you can't be late because it's over a big holiday weekend. It was done. And they can, on YouTube, there's a ton of videos showing the concert. This one was worse. 2.5 weeks. They'd sold the tickets. They had 2,000 monitors. They needed a stage. They'd already had the concert scheduled. They had nowhere to put the monitors. So we came up with a design out of wood, a grid to put all the monitors up. Shipped it from Portland, Oregon to New York City. That's very far. That's like 4,000 kilometers in 2.5 weeks. That's from the idea to the concert opening. TED stage. Well, it says right there, 1 week. That's 12,000 pieces of wood. Now, they were in assemblies, so essentially you're putting trucks in, or you're clicking together pieces of parts. Not 12,000. There's a few hundred, and you have to do it in a week. Here's a video. Nike Icebox. This was really good. You heard about Google investing in Sidewalk Labs. They were going to build a tire community out of timber in Toronto. The project did get canceled, but we worked on the prototype floor, a one-story floor, very big. I think I have a photo for buildings out of wood that would be 35 stories tall. Let's see. Here it is. Like, look at this piece of wood. This is a leg, custom. And then we had mass plywood, and then also CLT, and these kind of connectors. Everything custom made. But what have I learned doing this? I mean, the mass timber is booming in the world. There's a lot of interest, but we're also having a lot of growing pains. There's a lot of bankruptcies. So there's all this demand. There's not enough of a supply chain. Not only is there not enough glulam or CLT, there's a shortage of builders who know how to do this, or even how to bid the project. There's a massive, it's hard to even get CLT now. And because when you're ordering your CLT, you're not going to fabricate it on site. 99% of it is all going to be custom fabricated with all the windows and everything cut out. There's not enough people who know how to do that. It's a crazy shortage. Let's see. Let's Google Sidewalk. I'd like to show these videos. You will get this presentation at the end, included in our many links to videos showing what's going on. So if you want to look at those to get more information. That's where we are in Portland. I wanted to bring this up. For those of you who weren't here yesterday, I had the privilege of inviting some of the people who came here yesterday to give their presentations. I learned a lot. It made my whole trip here just to listen to these people speak. Very diverse perspectives, from architects to wood suppliers, Fabian design to production. How do you fill that gap? I have design, I have a CAD or a BIM data, I want a building. How do you get bits to atoms through machines? There's an extreme shortage of people who know how to do that. I learned a lot from Helena Lidlo from Sweden, who'd worked there for years. Now she's the CTO of this extremely big company. And she mentioned yesterday, we can't find people. We have all this demand. We have people coming into our factory with tons of robots and CNC machines and Randak machines from Sweden. And we explained to them, the Revit model can't get into the machine. It isn't going to happen. It's not designed for that. How do you take design data and feed it into the machine? So whether you're producing module, volumetric, timber frame, or mass timber, it's the same problem. There's just not enough of those people. If you want to see any of these videos, here's the YouTube link. I highly recommend it. I promote mass timber a lot online. I organize a lot of events. Last year I had an online event with 37 people speaking. All of those videos are available for free on YouTube, 33 of them. At this link, you'll be able to get all this resources and this entire presentation if you just have that QR code. There's a Google Drive if you're interested. Here's my bio. Steve Marshall, who's here, he's great. I moderate this LinkedIn Mass Timber discussion group that has like 3,800 members. Why do I do that? Because I want to link up with other companies who want to do mass timber, and I want to find people who can help fill that gap. We're pretty busy. We're in Portland. We have a lot of projects. We're building a new factory. We're buying a new Hondigger machine. We have a 5-axis Swiss cruising machine. We use CADWork software, which is German Swiss software. It has interfaces with our machines, so we would design in high levels of detail, and our machines, all of them can read that data. Business is good. I think the biggest constraint in our industry is we're getting approached by a lot of people who want to do mass timber, and it's not only us. Big companies like Nordic in Canada, massive supplier of mass timber, they're turning down 90% of inquiries. 90% of the people who come to you and want to do a project, you say no. Why? The project isn't ready to be fabricated. You're often getting renderings, or you are getting a Revit, ArchiCAD, Rhino model, but that model is not ready for fabrication. It's a reference model that often isn't very accurate or detailed. So what typically the industry does is you throw that model away. You don't import it. You look at it and you can completely rebuild the model. In software that is machine readable. That's also extremely common here. I know it is in Sweden. I know it's Fabian who said the same thing. So there's this great inefficiency between design expressed as bits to atoms or buildings. Therein lies both the challenge and the opportunity. Oh, this is one of our machines. These are kind of our deliverables. That's Stefan, my Swiss business partner. Everything we cut is kind of numbered, so it goes together well, because a typical problem we have, for example, we'll ship out a kit of parts for a building, and the general contractor says, well, which one do I use? We said, use this one. He goes, well, that one looks close enough. I'll use that one. And we're like, no, 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 no. Every piece here has a specific place for the entire building. For people to understand that concept alone is very foreign. We're like, you can't do that. And they're like, well, yeah, but how do you know what this angle is? How do you know this other thing if you haven't put it up yet? Because the digital model is a fabrication model, not a design model. Typically, they don't grasp that, and they don't believe us. They're like, you can't know that until you put the building up. Then they put the building up, and they're like, damn, this works pretty well. That's the end of the slides. What did I learn in yesterday's presentation? I learned how common this problem is everywhere. That gap. There's a ton of demand. Mass timber is booming in the US. There's a ton of interest in prefab. There's a ton of interest in industrialization. But what is the solution? How do we get those people who can work with the design community and then manufacture the buildings? That's what's missing. Almost everywhere I go, and the problem is there's no quick fix. I mean, it's hard to find people. I'm lucky. That's why I chose my Swiss business partner. You have to have people who can say, here's a Revit model, ArchiCAD model, Rhino model, or all of the above, Tekla. Now you have to completely build every piece of wood you're going to cut. And you have to do it accurately with appropriate tolerances, and you have to determine all your connectors. And those are also many of those are custom made. And then you have to ship that, and it all has to fit together, or you have a lawsuit. You have an unhappy contractor, an unhappy architect, and you're out of business. You can't do that unless you know how to build, you know a lot about wood engineering, and you know a lot about manufacturing. And preferably you speak German. Because a lot of the work we have to do with the software and the machines is in German. The number of people who have all those skill sets in North America is probably less than 20. But if you don't have those skills, it's like, well, I want to be an architect, therefore I subscribe to Autodesk. I started using Revit. That doesn't make me an architect. Or downloading SketchUp. Those are just tools. Knowing how to use them is where all the value is. And there's no quick way to do that. So it is a big opportunity, but how do we help solve that problem? Questions or ideas on that? Go ahead.
No, you need the microphone because we're live streaming. Thank you very much.
Is it online? So you say you want to know how to solve the problem? I mean,
other ideas.
Go to the universities, educated. I mean, kind of, right? No.
Which university in Canada or the U.S. will you send someone to?
Well, well, in the U.S. that's a tough one, right? Sorry, I have spent 15 years there myself.
Okay.
But maybe start out here and send some people over there. I mean,
big problem with that. We send them to Institute for Computational Design. We send them to ETH, University of Munich, University of Berlin, Technical University.
DTU in Copenhagen.
DTU in Copenhagen. The problem is how construction works in the U.S. is crazily different than how it functions here. I'm 100% sure of that.
And yet they need to use machines, like you said, from Germany, right? So
we do, but the problem is, I know I used to live in Germany. There's a lot of German. The problem is, in the U.S., it's such a big country. You're going to do a mass timber project. On most mass timber projects, the architect you're working with, the structural engineer, the general contractor have never worked with a mass timber project. They've never worked with offsite construction. That's on almost every project. There's a learning curve. And then guess what happens? So you work with this team on this big building, like I showed you. You do the next project, all new people. Why? Because it's the US. It's a big country. People don't move so much in Germany. People don't change jobs so much in Germany. They change jobs all the time, especially in construction. People are changing their jobs seriously. Every year, every 2 years,
but do the owners of those projects also change so often in the US? I mean,
the owners of the projects?
Yes, those financing it. If they finance it and they say, I want to work with those people because I've experienced with them, I lower my risk and all of these things, then...
Well, I'll give you one other example. Skanska. You've heard of Skanska.
It's a small
Skanska
company,
is a major,
It's a small company, yeah.
Yeah, Skanska is a big company, one of the biggest builders in Seattle, Washington. Skanska in Oregon, 3-hour drive away, 300 kilometers. We work with Skanska in Oregon on multiple mass timber buildings. I go up to Seattle, meet Skanska, they contact me and say, hey, we want to do a mass timber building in Seattle. I did the obvious thing. I said, well, hey, why don't you call the people at your company who we've been working with for years and discuss how to work well on mass timber? Their reply was, I don't want to do that. I don't know those people. I'm really busy in Seattle.
So I think what you're touching on, Greg, is more, so we touch on this, I think in every area of construction, there's huge shortage of skills. I was reading a fascinating / depressing statistic this morning that in the UK, we need approximately 40 to 50,000 apprenticeships into standard construction every year-ish, give or take. At the moment, we have on average 22,000 people entering construction at an apprenticeship level, but only 14,000 are completing. So that's a gap of 35,000 per annum right now, and it's getting worse. It's going down. So I mean, like, this is a very kind of common challenge where those that we do have working in the industry, not only how do we get more people in, but how do we upskill those who are in? And I think your point you touched very nicely. Just because you use Revit doesn't make you a BIM master or anything like that. I'm not going to name any names because we're live streaming, but I've seen a lot of poor Revit models from very prestigious organizations, which I'm not going to talk about. But to kind of just touch back, because you mentioned a couple of things in your presentation which are really important. I just want to clarify for the audience. You know, you talk about CLT a lot, cross-laminated timber. Why is CLT so important to kind of really kickstart kind of mass timber? Because it's been around a long time. But why is it so important?
I don't know. I mean, I'm going to go to the Mass Timber Conference in Portland, Oregon in 3 weeks with 2,500 other people. It's the biggest conference with this focus, I think, on the planet with specific mass timber. There's a lot of disagreement because a lot of people equate cross-laminated timber is mass timber. That's actually not true. There's nail laminated timber, dowel laminated timber, glue lam. Just think of heavy wood. Things that are bigger than 2x4s and 2x6s. So no one can even agree on what mass timber is. CLT is not standardized. Different CLT producers create different qualities in different dimensions with different woods. It is not a commodity. Not only is it not a commodity when it's raw, 90% of it is sold, again, custom fabricated. So it's hard to, people ask, well, how much does CLT cost? And you're like, well, how much does a 2x4 cost? I can tell you that, but CLT, we're going to sell it to you custom fabricated, so we can't give you a price till we know the cost of the material and the cost of all the value-added
So it's not like steel then, because steel is quite standardized with like the I-beam sizes and everything, and then you do standardized structural calculations. So that hasn't happened in a mass timber CLT industry yet.
No, certainly not the US. It's been a much bigger industry. There are more producers in southern Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. As we know, think Stora Enso, KLH. So in the US, it's still new. There's a lot of discussion that the US will soon be the biggest market for mass timber in the world. The growth is so exponential. I mean, we already are by far the biggest market for wood. And wood, you know, over 90% of Americans live in a wood-framed home. So wood is very standard, very accepted. There's more regulation supporting mass timber buildings, very, very tall. So the regulation is supportive, but what's still missing is that gap. And I don't want to be fear-mongering. I want to be very much on the opposite. To me, this is an insane opportunity. I would say it's one of the biggest opportunities in construction. Helping solve that problem, connecting CAD and BIM data, not only printing that off in PDFs for the builders, but designing efficiently for fabrication, and then changing so you're developing product platforms. So essentially, you're not just doing one-off projects that are all unique or bespoke. You're developing replicable systems where you learn, so you get really good at building hotels, or you get really good at building semi-customizable homes, and a lot of them, and marketing those. If you do that, you can keep the machines turned on. And that's what I tell people. What is up somebody who wants a factory? What do they want to do? Keep the machines turned on, adding the maximum amount of value. Then they're busy. The situation now is the machines are typically not turned on, often less than 20% of the time. Why? Because the data isn't ready to go into the machines.
So we're talking about moving from like a BIM software, traditionally a Revit, into what we would call mechanical CAD, which is more. I know obviously there are specialist softwares for CNC machinery. Very aware of this.
Yeah.
But kind of moving from modular design from a Revit point of view into a more kind of like CATIA, SolidWorks, Inventor world, or is that still not enough? Does it need to go into a further kind of?
Yeah, we
step?
do. I know in the Nordics you're going to see more Tekla, which is typically more focused on steel.
Yep.
We use SolidWorks. There are things we can export from SolidWorks. within mass timber, it has its own software and hardware stacks. Meaning in hardware, the leader is going to be Hundigger. By far it's a leader. There's SCM out of Italy, Cruzy, and then but a different product would be a Randec Bautech. It's a different product. Weinmann lines. And then the software, just to name them off, there's CADWorks, Dietrix, HSB CAD, CIMA, BoCAD. All of those are European, by the way. So the majority of the hardware and software stack is European, but those are still just tools. The real value add is the people, and that's what Helena Littleow said yesterday. It's all about the people who know how to have an effective process. Therein lies the opportunity. Therein lies the inefficiency.
So I'm going to ask, I'm going to be that question. I've got time for one more question. So I'm going to be that person to ask that question, which you're going to hate, which is, obviously we're in a green transition. Right. In this hackathon, we're talking a lot about sustainability. Yes. Now, obviously, we're not going to just swap all the steel and concrete for trees. Obviously, that's kind of, we need trees to obviously suck all the carbon out of the atmosphere. So what's the controlled method of producing this material? So because you're saying we need to use more wood, obviously great. But how do we ensure it's done in a controlled way and to ensure that we continually to use materials within a sustainable way?
Actually, I don't hate the question.
Okay, good.
I don't hate it at all. I don't think it's wood versus concrete at steel. I think that's an archaic, old argument, completely wrong. It's digital versus analog. Every building we make has concrete, metal, and wood in it. I showed you buildings that are hybrids. There's like a lot of wood, but a lot of the frame is steel. The elevator shaft in the middle is concrete. I have really good friends who fabricate steel, composites, and metals. And what we find out is 90% of our problems are all the same. It's going from bits to atoms to fabricate different materials. So stay away from the arguments over material. Use the right tool, use the right material for the job. And also, so when wood is the right material, by digitizing and optimizing your process, you can literally reduce waste by 90%. So you're not wasting wood and you're doing more with it. You make it stronger. Think of cross-laminated timber. That's why it's so popular. You're taking typically 2x6s and you put them like this. You make a big panel. Then you can do things you couldn't do with the 2x6 because you have a big panel. So you're resource efficient with wood. You're reducing waste, and you're able to build things that you otherwise couldn't. And what I encourage you to do, and why I'm happy to hear, I hope you solve these problems in Europe. I hope we help solve them, and the people who do help solve them have a global market. If you can help address those needs. And
sounds like an idea for a hack.
It's not shipping wood, it's shipping bits, it's shipping processes. That market is essentially almost unlimited. And there's no one company that's going to do it. We're just a little company. We don't want to do it. We don't want to do $1 billion. We want to do what we do well with good partners. And we hope other people solve these problems as well. And if they do, we can point to them and look what good business that is.
Excellent. Great. I will allow one quick question from the audience. Can we pass the microphone to this gentleman just here, and then we will wrap up.
Hi. I was wondering, you said that you put up a stage really quickly for
TED
festival.
Stage. If you've ever watched the TED Talk.
Yeah. So I was wondering, is it possible to take them down as well? Have you ever done a design and produced anything for this assembly? And if you haven't, is it feasible?
9
what
times.
Would be the challenge?
That TED stage goes up every year in a week, and we take it back down in 3 days. It's been used 9 times, and when we're done with it, a lot of that we can sell off and reuse.
Super cool.
Cool.
Right there, and that if you I can't go back.
It's QR code.
It's gone. If you're interested in this stuff, and I highly encourage you, it's all those videos and all those resources. This is a very, very big world. Please find your niche, use the resources, and help solve some of the problems.
Greg, fascinating. We can talk with you for hours and hours on this.
Yeah, and that's why I looked at the clock, because I obviously could go on for days. That's not the objective. I'm around. Talk to me.
Get the QR code. Check out stuff. Thank you very much, Greg. All right. Fantastic. Thank you very much. We are bang on time, nearly. Just 2 minutes over. This is absolutely fantastic. Next, we have Peter. You're here to talk about ISO 19650?
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, look, I remembered from... so welcome, Peter, from Molio.
Thank you. Great to be here. I've been here, and Torben knows that, a lot of times, and I think this is construction industry's most important ecosystem, because it's the ecosystem of knowledge within the construction industry. And it's here you can grow up new knowledge. And I think it's an honor to stand here today to talk about something as exciting as ISO 19650. And yeah, I'm going to give it some pulse, at least, so you are not going to... no. This is what I'm going to talk about, relevant data, because I think it's going to be one of the most important terms within our industry within the next 10 years. Because everybody is talking about the possibilities of making more automation, using new technology. But if you should use automation or use new technology and use some of the possibilities, we can see that other industries actually have been embracing for the last 10 years. We need one thing, and only one thing, and that is relevant data. Relevant data difference from all other information and data by two things. You can trust it, and you can use it. That makes the information relevant. And I'm going to tell you now the story about how it might be possible for us, the industry, within the next, I would say, 5 to 7 years, to be capable of handling relevant information in a way so we actually have a chance to do something different than when we can see that the industry actually are capable of doing right now. My presentation is based on where I spend my time. Every day I'm working with three different things. I am working with the Danish chapter in Building Smart. By my heart, I work with OpenBIM and work with how can we implement OpenBIM more and better within the Danish industry. The second thing is I'm an expert within standardization in one topic, one single topic. It's within the standardization organizations, it's named BIM. So, and it's not only the BIM models, it is the digital collaboration within the construction industry. And then the third thing is, in Molio, I'm implementing some of the new international standards within Molio's tools, so the Danish industry can work in digital collaborations that are based on the international standards in a more efficient way. This is a story where I want to start. I want to go back to the 1200th century. The Danish king needed to make a stronger fortification in the southern part of Jutland. The existing construction was based on 20 million very big rocks from the local area. So actually making a better and stronger fortification, he couldn't go to the local area and find rocks. He needed to do something else. So he looked upon what was happening in Milan, Italy. In Milan, people had been growing up a new technology. They had found out that they could use clay from the ground, burn it, and make bricks. So that's what he did. They introduced a new technology within Denmark within 10 years. Then you can look upon the wall and say, oh, it might not be the best kind of craftsmanship when you look upon the wall. but then you should go outside Copenhagen to 2 towns, look at the main churches there. Within 10 years, they built it up a craftsmanship so they actually could handle the tools, the technology in a way so they were capable of making something that actually afterwards had been part of the standardization within the construction industry. In a standardization that actually has been relevant for the industry to make very efficient production, a very efficient production that had produced the homes we are living within and the towns we can go and watch. So this is a short introduction because it's actually some of the things that we can see right now are happening within the digital part of our industry. I would like now to talk about 3 topics. It is options. Options. This is possible. I might do it. I might even be capable of doing it together with something or somebody. Availability. Okay, we can do it together. I can share it with you, and now we can use the option and share it. We might even collaborate. And then the third things, we might even do something that's relevant, something that actually can make money, something that actually can make a difference, might even do something that can handle some of the major issues that we want to change and where we want to make a difference. But we need to look upon how to do it. Doing that, we need to be very clear about, we need to be capable of handling every 3 things. If we don't do that, things can go wrong. In Denmark, we have had a law regarding public construction projects for the last, I think, 8 years, stating that people should use open BIM. But we have not been sharing information about how should we actually make sure that the open BIM that we know is an option, we know it's available, actually also is relevant. And that's where 19650 comes and handle that topic. Because one of the questions we might ask ourselves when we look upon the information that we are having, when we are doing a digital handover at the end of a project, it is when the people that are actually going to support the building within the years to come, when they are going to open the files, what would they be capable of reading? How would they be capable of using the handover that we actually made years ago? Would they be capable of reading all the information that we shared to them? So, what I would talk about now is how can we actually make sure we can make the right relevant deliveries of the relevant informations. European Commission has been looking upon how can they support the European construction industry being more efficient, being more capable of collaborating. And some of the things that they can see actually is that they need to support the industry by creating a way of having some way of working together, having some common practice regarding the handling of information. In doing that, they started up, and I say they, the EU Commission started up a standardization work 7 years ago. They made a business plan. They made the ground for the standardization regarding the 19650, which is not solely about BIM, but about information management regarding construction work, and regarding asset management. And that is the important thing. 19650 has 2 major focus points. One is stating what it is that I need as a client. What is my need regarding the information for my project or for my asset management afterwards? And then regarding the information that you should deliver to me within the project, I'm going to tell you what is going to be my way of controlling the information when you do the handover. And I'll tell it to you before we are going to make a contract. Because then you know how you can control your partners within the project. That's going to make me sure of that I'm actually going to get the right information in the handover. Actually, it is going to create the contractual foundation for the information management. That is what 19650 is about. It's solely supporting contract management and information management. Looking upon that, how can we actually make sure that the deliveries that are made are the agreed deliveries? We can do that not solely by defining my need for information. I need to be capable of doing a dashboard where I can calculate the cost. I might even within my requirements be needed to specify what kind of information it is that I actually need to do that. But within the 19650, it is stated that it's actually not solely something that I come up with, because as a client, I'm not the only wise person within the project. There are you. You are the other wise persons within the project. So as a part of the 19650 is that Ole actually, as an appointing party, is going to suggest to me, before we make a contract, that we are actually going to improve the digital collaboration in an efficient way. So actually 19650 is not only creating a frame stating what I need and how I'm going to control, but it's also creating a frame just like BLOXHUB, where within the project we can create the right way of doing it. That's the important thing. Going from me as knowing that I'm wise, I might even think that I know everything, going to that I know I'm going to make a contract with the wisest persons that I are around and that want to collaborate with me. That's 19650, and that's how you should read it. Okay, relevance. How do we pick up that? Relevance is so easy to talk about. You can see the new buzzword, we produce relevant data. Everybody knows, okay, if it's relevant, it's good. It's better than good. Relevance can be produced when people actually are focusing about what is it that we actually need. And I can't do it because I'm coming from the BIM world. I can handle the options and I can handle the availability. Making the whole talk about relevance, it's actually Ole that are doing all the work every day regarding his prefabrication. He should actually come and tell me what it is that he needs. And my asset management guy at home, he should come and tell me what is it that makes the information relevant. Thereby, we can actually do it in the right way. So actually, looking upon what is it the 19650 also embrace, it is the context. It is the context of the information management. How can we then work about that within the construction industry? It is that we are not only going to be within our silos, and I'm sorry to say that. I've been listening to the great presentations, but we are a little silo here. And but we are a silo because there exist other colleagues that are not within this silo. They are not thinking the same things. And I think it's important that we are looking about our own silos and actually think about how can we include them and not at least their knowledge. Okay, one of the things within the 19650, it is how can we make the environment where we are going to collaborate? One of the buzzwords right now is common data environment. The common data environment is actually going to give us the same thing as the phone system did a number of years ago. It's just to make a simplification. The important thing is, what is it that are actually going to be the focus when we are talking about information? It is how can we actually handle it in an efficient way. I can't sit there asking you, handing over your information every fortnight, and then, yeah, you should do that Friday afternoon, and I have promised my boss that I would do the control and the federated model and come back to everybody on Monday. But we can't do that efficiently. We need to be capable of doing things where we can use machines. Building Smart actually came up with a bright idea. IDS. IDS is going to be a great tool where within you can make a specification of what you actually need of information. And you can actually state your requirements regarding how are you going to control that these information actually are delivered. And by having that combined, you actually have a chance very efficiently to make a supporting environment for the whole information management. That is going to give us mutual collaboration processes where we actually can work together, and we actually can work together very efficiently. And then I'm going to talk about the silos that are actually the context for the information management. Some of you might have read the 19650. If you haven't, you should. But most important, you should read this. If you are at least a little interested in construction industry, in environment, and in the future, this standard is a fantastic masterpiece of combination of information handling, structuring information that are relevant for buildings, not only today to make the right decisions, but also having the informations in a way so we actually can work together with the informations in the future. This is the guidebook to 19650. And it's good because it used IPDs as the frame where they talk about how you, within the 19650, can handle it. But most important, seen from the talk that I'm doing today, is within here, they're specifying how are information quality controlled, and how do we specify which kind of quality control did we make regarding the information. Because I could go back to the drawing of the ships on the rocks from old days. One of the important things regarding information is not only that I put the right information in the system, it is that I also can document, when you look in the system in 5 years, how the information was quality controlled, how it was ensured that when you open and use the information, you can trust it. That you can be sure that the information that you look upon actually is relevant, and not just some information somebody put in and it was just Peter's best effort. It is what Peter could do on a Saturday afternoon. And you might find some projects where you can find some information that were made that way. But actually, within here, they are stating that within construction, you can now look upon projects where the information was produced in a structured process that are documented, that the information was clarified and controlled by a third party. Just imagine, working within your project, finding information that are so trustworthy that you know that people actually had made sure that these informations, they are really good and they are really something that you can work with afterwards. This one, it's coming now. This is about how we actually should focus upon data qualification. This is coming even more from different parties around the construction industry with demands not to how we do our digital collaboration, because it's our task to find out how we actually should do that. But they are now coming and telling us how we should make the information relevant, because it is the relevant information that they need. This is just a short afterwards. Just imagine being in the room. They gave you everything. They gave it in the right time, so you can do your work. It was just not relevant. So you actually didn't get anything. Therefore, there are options, there are availability, and then there are the most important thing, relevance. That was my words.
Thank you very much, Peter. I always enjoy people talking about 19650. I have a little admission to make. I was a consultant for part of the PAS 1192 British. Actually, one of the ones that we actually burnt and threw in the bin because it didn't actually work. But yeah, it's interesting to see, and it's interesting to kind of hear you talking about it. For me, and kind of correct me if I'm wrong, because I like to simplify things a lot. Like 19650 really is kind of, for us to kind of, in English we say, we agree to call a spade a spade. And that is like, not only are we talking about the right information at the right time, but kind of agree on what something is called, even at a basic level. And that is collecting information, especially from supply chain, to kind of agree, like, do you call that, you know, rough opening, opening rough, maximum opening, cut opening, like all these sorts of things. So it's like, and in your opinion, like, how much impact is this now having on industry, especially supply chain, in kind of understanding, oh, I need to actually think about what I call things so I can bring the right data into the process?
They are happening right now. I can see that there are happening three things. One thing that is actually maybe at the short term is the most important thing. The 19650 has given us a common way of describing how the construction industry actually ought to collaborate together. And that has given the software industry some kind of a baseline that they could refer to and make their tools work around.
Yep.
And that gives the second point. Our tools that we have bought, that we actually have at home right now, that we are using, they can actually more and more support the 19650, and by that, actually, some of the 19650 implementation are happening bottom up.
Yep.
It's happening because, we know they have a contract, but we are working together.
Absolutely.
And we know we have the tools, so now we can actually make our daily work more efficient because we use the 19650 approach and way of working. It's not within our contract. We know that, but it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, it means we can work better because
we can work better.
It's right data, right time, more efficient, more accurate, more.
Exactly.
Just more.
Yeah. And that is going to make some good in working that way, and that way they can actually be better in doing business by having that as one of their golden cards in their hand. The third thing is actually that some is actually, I would not say somebody, but some are actually right now implementing it in a top-down approach. I have seen clients that are now specifying their requirements regarding data so wisely that not only they are handing over the data and the information that they require, but the information that they get back actually give them another kind of insight. Insight to what's happening within the project, because now they know that they actually can rely on that information. Or almost like the presentation we heard about placing sensors within the apartments, now they can actually make other kinds of decisions that were not done before on that same kind of information delivery.
Yeah. I mean, it opens up all new possibilities.
It opens up new possibilities.
The data sets that we get now gives us, possibility, design, maintenance stages, like even predictive maintenance is like a great one where if those data sets are delivered during a construction phase, even simple things like when you build a building, when does all the warranties start to kind of run out on products that we put in? We've never had this before. It's basically been a massive pile of paper stuck on someone's desk, never gets read. Now we have it as a data set. It's fascinating. So
these three things might make some of us one day realize that we are in the middle of the 19650 world. But I think the 19650 world is going to be there before I can see it, because one of the things I can see, it is we are not talking so much about it, because actually it's actually better doing than talking about it.
I mean, we're worrying more about like a lot of us are doers. It's project deliverables, like what information do I need to build this hospital, for example, right? So we don't really think of it in a context of a standard. It's just like, what do I need? Here's what I need. Here's what I can offer you. And all the other stuff kind of happens in the background, kind of, I guess. So. Does anybody have, we have a question from Torben just there, who has the microphone already.
I do. Thank you so much, Matt. Just like Matt, I have to admit that I simply love people talking about standards, international standards, with the passion that you do, Peter. So thank you very, very much. It might be an unfair question coming to a close here, I know that, but would you sort of just from the top of your mind give us your impression of what is the number one obstacle for all stakeholders to implement these standards? I know the bigger companies within the industry have, the capabilities and resources, etc., etc. But we know that the Danish construction industry, just like any other construction industry, is made up of, maybe 10% big stakeholders and then 90% smaller companies, if not micro companies. How do we get those micro companies on board, involved, and integrating these standards into their everyday processes and work?
The main problem is that we are all too busy. We are too busy. I have so much to do today that I can't look upon the new things that even might make me capable of coming home earlier. That I think that is the main problem. The second thing is that that you can't take 19650 and just drink it, and then after half an hour, then you are 19650 capable. You actually need to have some knowledge. And actually, the worst thing is that you can't do it alone. And it is like being good in tennis. You can buy a racket, and then you can go to your green field, and then you can stand there, and you can do something with the ball, but it's not going to make you a champion. You actually at least need a good friend. And then you need to create your good practice, because as everything, somehow, as I showed with the bricks, 19650 is a lot of written words, but actually it's about craftsmanship. It is craftsmanship supported by technology. And you can't create craftsmanship without doing things where you use both your hands and your head and your collaboration. So it was, it was not just one thing.
I mean, I think also, from my personal experience, it has the word standards in it, which from a social kind of point of view, go into a meeting, bunch of people, very busy, like you said, I want to talk to you about standards. I mean, half the people have already smacked their head on the desk as well. It's an unfortunate side effect. And I mean, and I've read 19650. It's not the biggest page turner I've ever read. I have read better publications, so I think that's also another barrier. And I do speak to people at BSI, at different standards agencies, and go like you know those yellow books, like IT for Dummies.
Yeah.
Like we need an ISO 19650 for Dummies book, and it's not an insult, I think, to people. I think people just need it in a much more kind of, bite-size, easier to understand, plainer language thing. It's still very important, and the documents are super important.
Yeah.
But I think that to me, my person, I don't know if you agree with me, Peter. I think I've had that experience in my work that I've done.
You are actually pointing at the right thing. It's plain language and it's passion. You need, and now we are actually talking about making a very great movie or a novel. But actually, it is those two things we should combine to give people actually a chance to be capable of not understanding 19650, but to embrace it.
So yeah, exactly. So I'm predicting Oscars 2024. It's going to be Peter and Matt is going to win best foreign language film for ISO 19650. Problem solved.
Yeah,
that's what I'm going to predict. Peter, fantastic. We can talk about standards for ages, but I've got to wrap up. Thank you ever so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Next up, we have Michael Schwartz, a good friend, ex-colleague of mine, going to talk about some things that they're working on at RIB Software. So, Michael,
thank you.
Over to you.
So it's difficult, Matt. How do you continue after all that standardization talk? Because those standards are important, but for us at RIB, the tools that are being used to standardize work, to create more efficient workflows, to grab data, host data, make sure that we've got a better understanding, better execution of the projects. That's what we work on with RIB. We have a long range of products, and you're more than welcome to come over and talk with us about it. I got my good friends and colleagues, Mehmet and Thomas with me today. Today I will talk a bit about what we call the Connect Construction Cloud. If you haven't heard about it, it's that way we're moving right now with all our products into the cloud. Everything is in the cloud. That's what everybody is doing. We do believe we have an advantage here with Connect because it does things differently. Some of the questions that Peter was addressing around implementing standards, standardized work methods, improve the communication, improve the collaboration, but also gathering information back and use that further downstream in the life cycle of the building, in the handover process, is something that we take care about in RIB software. Not only in the RIB Connect platform, but also in some of the other platforms we have. So, yes, I'm not going to spend time on this because you all know this is the reason for why we are here. The reason for why we want to have a hack session like the AEC hackathon is because we want to address the main issues of the industry. I think the fourth time, Torben, we do it now, is the fourth time. And one thing that Torben and I was talking about last year, based upon the hacks that we saw presented, was that we were a bit, amazed about the collective, knowledge that we actually bring together here and the solution the groups come up with compared to the beginning. And now this has a bit of relationship to what Peter's presentation was about standards. We talked about the first hackathon about exporting and importing IFC files. That was the big topic. How could we do that? And now, if we look at the solutions that we come up today, is way, way beyond standards and data formats. So, anyway, I believe the hackathon is an important institution for us. Constantly to move the barriers and also to push limits for what's possible in the industry. So what we have done with the construction cloud is that we're actually addressing these 4 themes. One is, of course, what you also talked about, the poor collaboration. Poor collaboration have a lot of reasons. First of all, interest, responsibilities, ownership, but also some of the more financial sides of the collaboration push people towards focusing more internally in their own organization, their own profit, than they focus on the outcome for the project. On the lack of standardization, Peter, is important. Lack of standardization is not the lack of standardization, it's also the lack of the implementation of the standards. So we have the standards, but they're not implemented. We know it. We work with classification standards. We work, with the old SFP standards. We work with the new handover standards, etc. It's so important that we get tools that can support us, get those standards implemented, so we get some standardized ways of working, but also methods of reusing information downstream. Real-time data is a huge issue. It's a huge issue. The construction processes are being pushed like hell, and we need to cope with those speeds and be able to handle the lack of access to information, fast decision processes. That's why the information needs to be available 24/7 in the cloud, no matter where you are. If it's on your phone, on your laptop, wherever you are, you need to get access to the information. And last thing, of course, is the poor documentation. And poor documentation is even from design and all the way through, but it can also be everything, from the handover documentation, which is poor. So all these things we would like to address with our Connect platform as one of our platforms of many platforms that are addressing the whole ecosystem from cradle to grave. Data is, the new raw material. And why is data the new raw material? Because that's where we can find the key findings. That's where we can find the gold nuggets of where are actually the opportunities that we have overlooked in the stress of completing the projects. And we can see that all the access to all of the information from what's happening in the log files, who is doing what, when are they doing it, where did the error actually occur, who approved it, etc. Those kind of information flows and data sets are important to better understand the DNA of the current project we're working in, because the project DNA is different from project to project, and these things are changing. So that's why we would like to expose that information, make that available for the decision makers to make faster and better decisions. And the reason for that is this is the traditional decision process. If we look at the group we are inside the presentation area here, our combined knowledge is the ability we have to make decisions. And based upon that decision, we make some data sets. But what's happening now is that it's going the other way around. We're using data, we consult the data sets we have, and ask the data sets questions That gives us a new set of knowledge, which we cannot, think about because it's a set of data which is way, way beyond our combined knowledge. So it's a huge data pile and knowledge database that we can use, and then we can make better decisions. That could be standardization criteria or questions. It could be everything, from sustainability, constructability, everything that has to do with finance, etc. Use the data sets so we can make better decisions. I'm not going to go through this because, it's already covered, so it's just the Ds in the process, and we cover all of it from design and even down to the facility management. So that means the handover of the information. And I think a lot of, you said it, Matthew, the big pile of, shit you hand over, to the owner, and here you are, owner, here's all the data. Find out how you're going to maintain it. Warranties, are so important now. So when you hand over the information, the warranties that you as a construction company, subcontractor, or installer have to live up to have increased dramatically. So that's why the handover is important also. So we built the platform that can serve all these different purposes, from design, starting, having a mature, described communication and workflow described so that all things that are happening are being tracked. So when I ask for an information, I can see who I asked it for, who I sent it to, when did he answer, and what was the answer. Just as an example. So design and collaboration, that's where we start the whole process. So we would like to be able, to consult the design teams with the platform. Make sure that we start tracking the information from the design teams, whatever it's sustainability questions, it can be documentations like EPD documentation, scenario analysis, TCO calculations, etc. We want to track that. Maintain that information into the tender process. Use it in the tender process so that we in the construction management planning can start understand how we're going to use all that information. Who is it relevant for? How are we going to use it? And how are we going to document our own process? Into the field management where all the people are extremely busy doing all the labor work with the, hard hats, dirty boots. How can they become digital? We need to make that digital platform available on the mobile phones. So it's easy for them, to do quality assurance, document defects, register what's happening, issue management, without having to be specialists. They need to be specialists in their discipline, and the tools we provide to them just have to be 2 or 3 clicks on the mobile phone, and then the job is done. And that's what the Connect platform is addressing. Quality management, having all our inspections, all our procedures described. What is the quality of having a quality assurance process that we can replicate? Is that every time we execute on it, we're going to be better. The quality we build is going to be better, and our documentation is going to be better. And when we talk about documentation is so important now. The EU is talking about having a log file of all incidents and happenings in a project as something they would like to impose in the future. We can't do that manually, so that's why we need the digital tools to help us with that. And of course, the defect registration. Defect registration is important when it comes to warranties, but also responsibilities and ownership of fixing that defect. And again, it's not something which should be difficult. Pick up your phone, register your defect, and that flows directly into the communication flow on the platform. So the right people, immediately when you say you have a defect registration, connects, know who, because you are, let's say, a bricklayer. It knows who to send it to. So those workflows are already defined in the platform. So extremely efficient and extremely fast to do that. So it's really about, improve the work efficiency. It's about reduce the risk, both for the stakeholder, the owner, etc. But it's also about having a much better collaboration. So the platform facilitate the whole collaboration, and we increase the predictability. And increasing predictability also means we can predict what type of workflows there needs to be there to be enforced in order to maintain a good understanding of how are we going to manage request for information, request for change, issue management, and defect registration, so we can handle those requests fast and move forward. Yeah, I mean, the value chain, owners, consultants, contractors, and subcontractors, all of them are stakeholders and important stakeholders in the platform with different responsibilities and different communication lines. And this is why the whole ecosystem of stakeholders is important to take into consideration. So it's not only about a subcontractor or a contractor, it's really about everybody working together and have that included in your communication flow on the platform, so that we can manage the information and guide the questions to the right person and get the right answers as fast as possible, so we don't have to wait. Yeah, I don't think we'll do so much about design collaboration, because design collaboration, there's we all work with design collaboration, working with BIM models, working with different stakeholders. So what Connects does is that it enables us to, on the platform, communicate between us, asking questions, sending documentation, review documentation, etc. And not least, connect the workflows. Workflows are quite important because there are many workflows that are happening in a construction project, from early design down to handover, and even into maintenance and operations. The good thing about having workflows defined is that you know who to go to, but also the platform knows what to do. So it helps us to communicate with the right stakeholders without us have to think about, I take a picture, write an email, should I send it to Thomas, should I send it to Matthew, and etc. No, the system knows that when these type of requests comes in, it goes out to the organization, and the right stakeholders receive the information. And afterwards, in our quality assurance report, we can track all these incidents, and we can track the time it has taken to react on it, but also to fix the problems, etc. So those things are extremely important, that we understand that communication lines, workflows, etc., are very important for the for the whole collaboration, and improve the performance and reduce the risk, misunderstandings, and the waste of time that we actually have in the in projects. What we've done also is that we've taken the whole BIM environment and moved that from the design teams into construction, and everybody talks about BIM in construction. Of course, it's natural to do that, but we would like to take it a step further. So we would actually like to have the BIM files with its information and enrich it both on the construction side and with all the other informations that are happening on the construction side, and can reuse that into the maintenance and operation phase after, so that the BIM file with all its information can be delivered to the owner, and he can use that as a set of assets to understand how the building was built, but also see where were the defects and all the registrations, because that relates to the 1-year warranty period and the 5-year warranty period. So we can actually review and see those defect registrations we had, did they actually impact the liability of the building and its performance? So that's why we would like to extend the use of the BIM file. So we have actually made like a game platform. So we have a gamification of the BIM files. We use standard IFC files, neutral files, BCF files, etc. So all the file formats can be used in a complete game platform. Very easy to use, and even with my big thumbs, I can do it, in a split second, do a registration, and then it's done. The same on the mobile phones when I want to do a registration. The good thing about the mobile phone registration for the stakeholders is that it understands my industry or my discipline. So if I'm a carpenter, if I'm a bricklayer, that's the role I have. So if I do a registration, it already knows what I have to do. So it guides me through that registration, so I don't miss the registration or some important information in my registration of a defect or a quality assurance process. And again, the defect management is something which is important. It can also be used for existing, existing buildings where you want to do some registrations for asset management. So we've taken the process of understanding all of the checklist, all of the assets that we need to go through, and make it easy for the user to do it. So all the user have to do is to pick up his phone, pick and choose what he's going to do, and the system will guide him through it. Yeah, I'm not going to use so much time on that one because these are just, some examples of how it looks like, whatever you are on the platform, looking at the quality assurance processes, or you look at it on any of your mobile devices. So you can say the other thing which is more related to the AEC Hackathon is the platform is open. So that means if you want to, connect the platform and all the data sets that are, contained there into any other systems, use that information in other purposes, there is an open API that are available. Just come to talk to us and we can help you with that. So we can actually develop, our own applications on top of the Connect platform. So that means extend the use of all the functionalities into other different purposes. And also we can integrate with third-party applications. If there are other applications that we would like to integrate with, like financial systems and other type of systems, then it's possible. And it has been the strategy from the beginning that the API has to be open, has to be available, and has to be easy accessible. So I think if you are interested, come and talk to us because it's quite compelling. Yeah, so we say that we're with you all the way. So we are cradle to grave with the Connect platform, open API, open platform, guide and secure the processes, improve the collaboration and communication, and make sure that we can do a thoroughly structured handover of information into maintenance and operation. I think that was it, Matthew. Quick and dirty.
That's good. Thank you very much. I think common theme here with the last few presentations. The work that you guys are doing at RIB is like looking at critical path and exposure of data, like getting the right information to the right people at the right time. How are you finding right now dealing, with the industry that you deal with? What are you being asked the most right now? Like, what's the problem that people are trying to solve tomorrow, right now?
It's funny because it's related to Peter's presentation.
Yeah.
DS1140. DS1140 is a huge challenge for them.
Which is, just to expand what DS1140 is.
DS1140 is a standard that requires the contractors to do a specific, quality assurance on the load-bearing constructions or elements. It's quite time-consuming. It's difficult, and the problem is that the consequences of not doing it is extremely severe for these contractors.
Okay.
So that's the biggest problem. That's where Connect is great because we just we create the checklist that they have to conduct on that standard, and since it knows that you are, let's say, a concrete subcontractor,
yep,
and you pick that, then you know exactly what to do in order to fulfill the standard.
So
that means we can have a standard on one side, and then we can create the checklist in the system, and then I'm compliant. So that means every time I do it, I know I've done exactly what's needed.
But that's touching really nicely on what we were discussing at the end of Peter's presentation, which is taking something, something which is a technical document, a standard, and turning it into a to-do list.
Yeah, and the other thing is also related to the presentation. Sorry, to the 19650, because that is the handover of information. Because what we've done also is that we have structured digital handover, so that all the documentation that we collect from design into construction, that means after tender, where you have the exact products that you're going to install, all that documentation needs to be structured in such a way that we can use it in our maintenance operation phase. And we all know that, as you said, the big pile of information is as-built information. The as-built information is 100% information on how we build a building, and we only need about, 15% of it?
Yeah,
probably, to maintain it and operate it. And just think about in your car, for example, if you take your service manual for the car, can you see how it's being built?
But does he have ever read a service manual?
No, but I mean...
But yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
And owners have it the same way.
I mean, Tesla don't give me the manual.
No, but listen,
on how
the
to
thing
build
is
the
that
car.
a service manual in a car, for example, you can't read about how the car is being built. You can read how you should service it, maintain it, and operate it. And that's exactly what we do with the information in digital handover. So we actually, ditch all the information that are not relevant for the maintenance. So we only have that information, and then we can push that into the FM system. with sequences, how often it has to be done, what has to be done, what service they have to conduct, who have to do it, etc., etc., etc. It also gives the construction company the ability to live up to the warranties that he's obligated to.
Absolutely. I mean, you and I have been working together for in and out for some time, and there's obviously certain things we always see that are not being done. I mean, from your guys' opinion right now, things that are kind of like the low-hanging fruit, but people are not asking these questions. Like for you, what do you kind of see that is like something? God, guys, why are you not doing this? It's so easy that they could do.
Replicating tedious processes. Make them digital. Get out of the old habits, and really, embrace the opportunities that technology provides to you. And we talk about, digital transformation. We've done it, for 20 years more. And I think things are happening now because of a lot of reasons. Material prices are going up. It increased the pressure on the total price and cost. So that means we have to be more efficient in the way that we actually execute our projects. Quality is becoming an issue when it comes to warranty. So the 1-year warranty and the 5-year warranty starts to become an issue for construction companies, that they have to live up to those warranties. They're going to be enforced now. And think about if you have like 30 million crowns project or 50 million crowns project, on average about 50% of that is related to warranty. So that means if you have a 50 million crown project, about 25 million is on your warranty side. So that is why the handover, that documentation, using technology to describe how it was built, what was the defects, how do we handle the defects, so that you can't come and tell me, hey Michael, you know what? We have a leak in the toilet. I know, but you haven't maintained it the way you should.
Yep. Oh, very good. We are over time, but I will allow the floor to be opened for a question if anybody has a question. No, we're good. Fantastic. We are a little bit over time. We're going to keep running until we have one more talk left. But Michael, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. So we have one talk left. Some may say that it's the best till last, but I was on first, so we'll say that the best was first. So finally, we have two gentlemen from Covi. We have Nikolai and Christian, and they're going to talk about something called LCA Collect, I believe. Is this true? Yes. This is true. Fantastic.
It's on. Yeah.
And this is for you. Oh, you're two.
I
Oh,
think I
okay.
got this one.
Multi-clickers. Thank you very much.
Great. So we're here to talk about a little project that I think me and Christian has worked on for like a year now. Yeah.
Almost, yeah.
So what we call LCA Collect. Yeah. Actually, when they say we're from Covi, we're actually from Agitema, but Covi has been is our mother company and has been closely involved in developing this, along with Rambøll and Molio and DKGBC, which is now Rådet for Bæredygtigt Byggeri. Yeah. So the whole process actually started when we started to do LCAs on a larger scale. We had a smaller contractor coming to us saying like, we want to do LCA for all of our buildings. Could you help us with that? And we said like, okay, if we have to do LCAs for all of our own buildings, then we also have to do LCAs for their buildings. Then we kind of need somebody, some way to structure the data that we get in, so we don't have to grab the phone and call the construction engineer, have him send over an Excel sheet, call the guy in charge of installations, he sells another Excel sheet, then I have to sit and figure all of this out, and in the end, I type it into my LCA BYG file, and then I print a report, and then the file dies, and it's in archive, and we don't get any information out of that whatsoever. So we said that if we have to do this, then we have to create an online platform where you guys can deliver into us exactly what is in your building, so we can make the LCA calculation for you. Because you are the guys who knows the project. I don't know which type of concrete is being used in this project, but the construction engineer, it will take him 5 minutes to put in which type of concrete and how much reinforcement, because he already knows those parameters. So, in able to conduct an LCA information, as it's stated here. We need to know exactly what is in all of our buildings. And in their digitalization, we see it as playing a major role, because the old process that we did, we spent 70 to 80% of our time when doing an LCA collecting data from different data points. So we are getting a model from somebody, then we are extracting quantities from that model, then we're getting an Excel sheet and an email and so forth. So in order to be able to spend more of our time creating value than just phoning people and typing things into an Excel sheet, we started this project. So what is LCA Collect? Because there's a lot of LCA programs out there right now. There's real-time LCA, there's one-click, there's a lot of other things. The thing that's a bit special about LCA Collect is that LCA Collect is for creating an LCI. So if you're an LCA person, then you've probably come across the term LCI, which means lifecycle inventory. So basically what we're addressing on the platform is gathering all the information to create an LCA. When you have your whole LCI, it says like, we have this amount of interior gypsum walls. They consist of 2 plates of gypsum on each side, some rock wool, some steel framing, and so forth. And that information is the hard part about an LCA. Calculating the CO2 emissions is just applying factors to the LCI. So what we say is that LCA Collect is an online open source platform for collaborative LCI. So instead of me making the LCI as an LCA specialist only, I collaborate with all of the people involved in the project to create this LCI for the project. So at some point, this started we said it's much more valuable that if we do something in Arkitema Covi, then we still just have a platform that everybody else has to use when they work with us. So to gain the most from this, we said we want to do this kind of like a industry collaboration instead, to try to make a common tool for us all to use. So we reached out to our friends at Rambøll and Molio and Rådet for Bæredygtig Byggeri and Dansk Industri and Danske Ark and a lot of other of these industry organizations. And they agreed that it would be very good to get some standardization in this, because in the Danish building industry, we have a strong tradition for when we need to create some kind of new structure. We do it in an industry collaboration because we don't want to have 10 different type code systems, because then when we go from early stage process and then another architect takes over, then he's using his own arbitrary system. It doesn't benefit anyone. So we tried to gather all of the resources in one place on LCA Collect and put our efforts in doing an open source solution that the whole industry could use instead. So now we launched it the 1st of March, the web platform. We got Realdania to support us with a very generous grant that makes it available for Molio to host and support the site free of charge for 2 years for anybody who wants to use it. So the code will be hosted by Molio on their servers. And then Molio and Rådet for Bæredygtig Byggeri will kind of be in charge of the further development and making sure that there's these support groups and so forth. Yeah. So on the platform, we gather quantities necessary for the LCA calculation. They're collected from all of the parties. So you can attach an architect, you can attach the contractor, you can attach the structural engineer, and they could go in and provide the information that you need as an LCA auditor. We also know that all of our data in such a project is a hybrid data structure. We might be very far ahead in doing Revit models, and somebody else might do that. But sometimes we get something, they've scanned in some PDFs and sent to us in an email, and other times it's in a tabular data format. So we can't really make a solution that only bases itself on like the perfect BIM model, because the perfect BIM model does not exist. So instead we said like, okay, we need to create something that can handle a hybrid data set. We need to be able to communicate on the platform, so we don't have all of this email correspondence about minor tasks. We need to be able to go in and say like, this building part, what is the installation in here? Or are you painting these walls? Are you not painting these walls? And people can answer quite quickly. So one of the other things that's really important to the project is that by gathering this and making a standard, we can start benchmarking our results together, because we gather it in a database after a BIM type code, which means that when we have 20 projects, they're all categorized the same. We know the CO2 level of each element in the type code. We can start looking at when we need to build a new 5-story apartment building. What did the last 5-story apartment build? 5 last 5-story apartments that we built look like? Okay, then we can say like, we're probably gonna hit around this figure of CO2. And we saw that the exterior walls in masonry tiles was the big issue. So maybe we should look at that next time. This, we also have like in Danish it's called Bolig- og Planstyrelsen, which are the people who make the building regulations in Denmark. They followed this project because in Denmark now, for the non-Danes here, from the 1st of January this year, there's a maximum of CO2 you are allowed to emit for 1 square meter of building you build, if the building is over 1,000 square meters. And they have this stair that goes down to, in 2029, 7.5 kilograms of CO2. So that's there, they need to adjust. That's kind of part of the plan. They need to get in some data from the building industry in general, and then say like, is it realistic that we're hitting 7.5, or can we maybe go even lower, because everybody right now is already at 7. So that's also a part of this, to supply real world data from real projects to government and authorities, so they can make the right decisions in the regulation. Yeah, and we are at a hackathon, and of course, as we are doing open source, we also have an open API to integrate, because as we mentioned earlier, this hybrid data structure means that we supply some basic functionality. You can upload CSV files, because you can export a CSV from most software, be it Revit, ArchiCAD, TechLab, whatever you use. And you can also upload an Excel sheets, because not all people can create a CSV file that's correctly formatted. So that's kind of the two things we support in the UI now. But then there's an open API, so you can do integrations with whatever software you have. So we use NTE Fact to have all of our building descriptions and quantities in there. So in the future, we're probably going to do some kind of integration so we can synchronize the platform with that, so we get our data directly from the app. But I think enough talk, so maybe we can see if we can
hold the table.
I think maybe if it's an HDMI, so maybe we don't, maybe I can actually do this without too much lag. But of course, no. That was a pipe dream. Okay. So this is the front page where you log in. I just have one project in here right now on this account. But here, of course, you get to your start page. You can see the projects that you have. You can add a new project, or you can continue on your project here. So if we create a new project, I can type in some standard data about it. I can choose my reporting scheme. Right now, we only use BIM type code, but as you see, it's kind of a drop-down menu. There is something in the back end where we can incorporate other stuff. And over here, we can do some different things. Of course, we need some kind of area. We can go in and classify the load-bearing system, and we can say which year we estimate the building to be finished at. And in here, we have our building energy use. You type in from your energy report, and you can upload a photo of your building in here. So right now you can see I'm the only member of the new team, but I could invite one of my colleagues here to the project. And then, as you see, Mikkel here, he's already a user on the portal, so it automatically realizes that, and then he's added to the project. And down here, we have our project groups. So here I can say architect. And I can go up and say Mikkel here. Mikkel, he's an architect. Okay. And maybe if Mikkel is also the lead architect, I can also say that. So now when Mikkel, he is the lead architect, he can invite other architects into the project. So that's kind of how we control users. So of course you would have construction engineer, you would have whatever else you would have in here. So this here is all of our building components. So this is the site where we start our LCA inventory. So in here we can say this is in Danish because it's the Danish BIM type code. But let's go in here and say like I want to add some internal walls to my project. Then I can do like if I'm low tech and I'm just typing stuff in, I'm allowed to do that. I can select a quantity, I can select what it is, and I can write a description out here. The description usually would come from our building part journal, something like that, but it's just, as of now, a textual description. So when I'm done with this, it's added, but that's kind of like maybe a slow process, but it's also, we're also able to upload data here. So let's see if I can find a CSV file. Oh, we have a test file. And then I add my CSV file here. So it comes in under my sources. And because we didn't want to make like a specific CSV format or anything you needed to adhere to, we kind of have this mapping functionality. So in here, we can go in and say like the name could be construction, description would be beskrivelse in Danish, and then I can go in and say this is in meters, so this is the meters, this is the square meter quantity, this is square meter, and so on. So you don't kind of need to adhere by some kind of strict format, you just map whatever data you get in as long as it's in a table format. So then when I go into my building components, I can go into my interior walls, and then I can press here instead, and then I get my sources over here. And of course you can have extra sources here, so you can have like 5 CSVs and name them from whatever. It could be Revit models or whatever. And then we can go in and we can say like, we want to filter by, let's say if there's something Innervik. Yeah. So I add a filter, I take my interior walls and I press done. And then I close here. And then they're not added.
I don't think you mapped it right. But
Maybe, yeah. Yeah. We have an issue in here. Let's just get this everything. So yeah, we launched this 3 days ago. might be some issues. Let's see. Okay, our quantities here. Nope. We found a bug. I apparently found the CSV file from hell. Okay. It works sometimes, mostly. Yeah. But one of the other things that we have in here is also the ability to add a task. So if I have to have one of my colleagues to supply some information, I can do that, and I can assign it to the architect group as a whole, and then all of the people who are in the architect group, they will get a notification that there's a task for them to go in and do, and they can also chat about the task. So in here, do you need right? And then you can go back and forth, and when it's done, you can hit approved, and you can go into task here and get an overview as well. So in the end, we're able to export this into LarsenUrban, which is the software we use here in Denmark, but we're also available as a CSV export if you use something else. And of course, again, it's an open API. So if you want to do an integration with some other API, one click or something like that, that would also be possible. So I think that's the show, and I think there's a bit of where we're going from now. So as you see, the functionality in here is like, it's quite limited right now compared to having to do a full LCA. So we have a roadmap for functionality that we would like to incorporate in here. And one of them is that the first one here is that we need to add assemblies. So we need to be able to, on the platform, go in and describe how much gypsum is there per this wall. So you get all of those to your inventory. Then we need to add EPDs and environmental data to those. So when you say like we have 4 square meters of gypsum per this wall, this gypsum is Knauf-Gips. And then you get the Knauf-Gips EPD from Ego platform, which is an open source platform for EPD data. Then we want to do calculation through an API. So we want to integrate, and it's in communication with LarsenUrban about how we do that more specifically. So instead of us sending to LarsenUrban and you have a lot of things you have to do in LarsenUrban in their UI, when we have the EPDs and assemblies, we can do everything on the online platform. So that means that if I have a construction engineer who knows how to do LCA, I can say, just go in and map all of your stuff. I'll map all the architecture stuff, and then we'll send it to the LarsenUrban API and get a result in there. Then there's a bit of control of user rights, because right now everybody can go in and put building parts in everywhere in the project. So the construction engineer can put in a wall, like an interior gypsum wall if he wants to. We kind of see from some of our tests on our early prototypes that when we get maybe not the engineers and the architects, but we get to the constructors on the building site that has to deliver something in, it's nice to be able to log some stuff so they don't accidentally delete something, and they only see the things that are relevant to them. And then we have versioning. We need to be able to kind of, because an LCA, right now this is made for documentation purposes. So that was the head, like we have to deliver for municipality. We do documentation in here and we submit it. But of course we will be doing LCA throughout the process. So we would be like to have some versioning where we can make milestones and say like, oh, at this delivery, the LCA performance of the process was this, and then you kind of log that, and you can go back in time and see how did that look at that point, and then at the next stage, how did it look? so you can kind of follow along and see if you're on track. Then we need to have other classification systems. Right now there's BIM typecode. Some people really like CSS and other typecodes. Then we would like to be able to share anonymized data from the platform, because when we start getting results back to the platform, that data is crucial to be available to everyone, but there's like a huge issue with confidentiality of projects and so forth. So we need to figure out how we kind of, in a good way, anonymize the data, but still keep it relevant for people who want to use it. And then, of course, there's BIM integration, and when we get further, we can start having standard assemblies, so you don't have to create a JIP wall every time. Maybe you can just use the JIP wall that your company set up in your own catalog. So that's the roadmap that we see now. But for now, we've had like a year of peace and quiet to lay the foundations for the platform. And along the way, a lot of people showed interest in participating, and we kind of had to say, like, we really need some peace and quiet to get everything going before we can start integrating. But now we really want to invite everybody to contribute to the development of the platform going forwards, because we can't do this on our own, and it's usually better when more people collaborate. We get a more solid product in the end. So whether you're a developer, an engineer, an architect, or can contribute in other ways, we encourage everybody with every level of expertise to try to get involved if they think this is a relevant issue. We hope that we together can build a better platform that we all can use and that is open source, so we don't have to pay outrageous fees for software that locks our data behind some kind of wall. So yeah, let's try to see if we can make a difference here. So the future development is going to take place through these interest groups that is going to be facilitated by Molio and Danish Green Building Council. Then it's going to be, the source code is going to be available at GitHub. So that's going to be up. It's not up yet. We still have to deploy it to that, because for now it's been running in an internal DevOps environment. But we're working on it. And the webpage is lcacollect.dk, and that will be updated with news around the platform, and also our when the GitHub is live, there's going to be a link in there. So I think now I've talked enough, and I'll give the word over to Christian, who is our full stack developer on this, and he will show a bit about show and tell a bit about what's on GitHub. How does the API work? And
I will just show you what we have on GitHub. As Nikolai said, it's not yet public. They're still ironing out the latest open source details, but for now there is like a front page or landing page where you can read a bit more about the technicalities of the tool. And we have a little diagram explaining how it works if you're interested in going down into the details of the repos when they become available. But they are actually already up there, but they are secret at the moment until the open source license is figured out. But we have a bunch of repos split into the backend and the front end. Then I just wanted to, so Nikolai has like clicked through the UI, which is what the ordinary user would use going to the website. But we also have a API that you can use to get all information which you can see in the UI just out as structured data that you can use for your Grasshopper plugin, for your own website, whatever, something else you want to do. This is just an example. Here's 3 different queries. So the first one, you can choose to get the projects if you want. The next one is this reporting schema. And here I have linked it to a project. So if I look it up, I get the schema for one single project. And then again, down here we get the categories. That's the tree Nikolai showed that you can open up. And within them, there's some elements. And here to the right, you will get all the data that's available. And you can see most of them for the project Nikolai made. It's empty, there's no elements. But somewhere, if you scroll down, there will be a few ones with some data inside. And the nice part about this is that you can, as a developer, explore it yourself. So over here in the documentation tab, you can go in and see what you can ask for, what data is available, what you can update. Yeah, that was what I had.
Very nice, guys. Super. Come and join us on stage for the Q&A. I don't know who you were referring to of the thousands of euros we have to spend on software. But as we're live on YouTube, I'm not going to ask you to clarify that either, so we don't get sued for defamation. You answered my question, but I'm going to ask it anyway in the in your roadmap. I was sitting here thinking from a business commercial sense, like benchmarking. Like you're collecting all this LCA data on building types, when these buildings are made, but also who's making them. And like, it would be incredibly interesting to kind of like see, oh yeah, that company over there is really good, that company over there is really bad. And using that as, you know, competitive intel, like internally. Like, have you thought like this information could be like a bit of a kick up the butt to those organizations who are doing a bad job, potentially?
So I think it's very important that everybody feels safe that their information when they use their the platform is not shared, at least not with that. We sometimes work for clients that has very, very high levels of confidentiality, and we still use Revit and BIM 360 and everything because we know that nobody else is going to be available to that. But I think it's definitely going to be interesting as maybe as a sector thing, because everybody's talking about that we want to be more sustainable. But if you look at the building sector as a whole, it'll be a good measure to see like if we have 50 or 60 projects
and if we've made any progress
or anything else.
Yep.
Are we making any progress year to year? And I think also if you're a developer or if you're an architecture company, you want to be able to access your own portfolio and see like, are we keeping on track, or are we getting behind the curve compared to what the requirements are and what our competitors are saying? So, of course, you can publish your own data if you want it to as a marketing scheme. I think there's a lot of people who would like to say, if they create very sustainable buildings, that this year the average CO2 of our projects was this, for example. So I think it could be good also as an internal measure in companies to say. I know that there's a developer that we've been working with that have internal structure for data. So the project actually, if they go above their own guidelines for how much CO2 they can expend, it gets subtracted from the project budget. So it hurts the KPI that maybe some of the project leads care most about, how much they make from each project. So I think something like that could be quite relevant.
What do you see as like the biggest hurdle, I suppose, to get over? You're talking about bringing also in a lot of data into your system to actually make these measurements. Where are you seeing the big kind of challenge in the coming 1, 2, 3 years on kind of what's available for you, or what will be available for you to build the system?
I think especially if you are looking at larger scale buildings, I think just getting all the relevant data in there will be a bit of a challenge. That's why you're not limited to just like typing in things, but we have this CSV import, and then I think if it gets adopted more, then plugins for Revit that you can automatically upload, integration with different BIM software. So you need to get it like smoother, the workflow, because otherwise, like typing in the data will be a big hurdle for big projects.
Bad data in, bad data out is the standard, and ISO 19650. Little gentleman over there. Do we have any questions in the audience? Quickly, we do. We have I have one here, the one there. I'll just give you the microphone.
Thank you. So I was wondering, the sources you put in, can you automatically update it and it will still be tagged to the different things, or do you have to kind of remove it and start all over again each time you kind of update that?
It is right now it's like DOM sources, so you will have to do what you said, like you delete it, update it. The idea is to make it more live and so it's flexible. Right now, since like it is like we really hurried the year we had, so we jumped the fences quite a few times. And that's one of the times where we took like the minimal approach we could do to it, just make it DOM and you can upload. But that will be like something to address on the roadmap.
So exactly, we talked a lot about that we at some point want to be able to just refresh the source, right? So you just replace the CSV with a new CSV that has 10 more rows, and then you can add the 10 rows and the other quantities gets updated. But yeah, it's not there yet, but hopefully it will be there.
Yeah, thanks.
Was there one more? Quick question, and then we're going to wrap up the stream.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. Super inspiring, insightful. I personally don't have a lot of contact to that because I'm like working on different things, but I'm originally from Germany, and I'm just like wondering, okay, you are now primarily focused obviously on the Danish environment because you need to figure that out this year, or like actually like 2 months ago already, so the pressure is on. But I'm wondering, is that something that there's also like international cooperation, like let's say there's also like certain standards that are being exported from Denmark into the neighboring markets, or how does that work?
So I think we definitely went with the BIM type code because we know that's also something that's used in Sweden and Norway, and for us that's kind of like the markets that we operate in is Scandinavia. And I know there's also been it's also an open source kind of classification system that's done in collaboration in the industry. So we thought that would be a good place to start. But I also know now that the LCA Byg, which we use in Denmark for calculation, has just been launched in Norway as kind of the default tool for their LCA calculations. So I think there's a lot of, because we have been quite prominent in doing certifications of our buildings in Denmark, we have some experience with doing LCA in that manner. And then I think now that experience is going to neighboring countries. But actually the certification scheme, DGNB, that we use in Denmark a lot comes from Germany originally. So I think things are kind of spreading around.
Okay, thanks for the answer.
Thank you very much. So that is it. That's the end of the Tech Talks. For those of you that are watching at home, enjoy. For those of you that are here, go back and hack, and we'll see everybody tomorrow for some amazing presentations. Thank you very much.